Douluo, my martial spirit is the phoenix. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Cooking. Zhang Fei, who fell to the ground, gasped heavily. He was lying in the snow, but he didn't feel the cold at all. His tired body was almost numb, and the cold couldn't make him feel too much pain. Kinnan and others were lying with him, and they were as tired as bugs. By the way, do you know who was in those carriages just now? It seems that they have a special relationship with our captain. Jie Chunfeng, who was standing aside, panted and asked gossiping questions. That's Vice Dinshire, Ma Xiaopang's teacher. After all, Verna had studied at Francis College for a few years, and she had basically seen everyone. The captain's teacher? Lan Zhi's eyes lit up, and the flames of gossip kept surging. Isn't that very powerful? In her opinion, to be able to teach a genius among geniuses like Ma Hongjun, how powerful must his teacher be? Could he be another titled Douluo? There are only so many titled Douluo in the whole continent. If there is a new title Douluo, the spirit hall must know about it. And she doesn't look that old. Kinnan also made an analysis. Could it be a soul Douluo? Jie Chunfeng continued to guess. Verna said with a smile, "What are you guys thinking? Where are there so many strong people? Do you think soul Douluo and title Douluo are just a joke? You can cultivate them casually? Then who is she?" Although the group of people tilted their heads, they didn't want to move their bodies at all. Teacher Shire is only in her 40s and has the strength of a soul emperor. Verna explained with a smile. Only a soul emperor. Annie couldn't help but roll her eyes at Jie Chunfeng. Soul emperor is weak. Don't you see that you are just a little soul master? Jie Chunfeng's face froze, and he tried to defend himself. I'm only 12 years old this year, and my soul power has reached level 21, which can be regarded as a genius in the martial soul world. You? Verna also laughed and said, we are not much different, so don't compare. Take Ma Xiaopang, that stinky boy, for example. He is only 7 years old and has reached level 24. Are you sure you want to call yourself a genius? Jie Chunfeng was speechless. Kinnan came out again to smooth things over and said, our captain can't be compared. He is not a genius. He is clearly a little monster. Don't compare. That's right. Who would compare with a little monster like him? Jie Chunfeng injured the soreness in his waist and sat up from the ground. Okay, everyone. Today's training task is over. Everyone, get up quickly. It's time to go home. At this time, Douluo appeared out of nowhere and suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Starting tomorrow, everyone will take a 3-day break. Gather in the hall after 3 days. Lord Xiang Mo will arrange the next training for you. 3 days. You minimum. And the others' eyes suddenly lit up. They had been running outside Wuhan City in the heavy snow for more than 10 days. They had to get up early every morning and were already exhausted. That's right. You should also take a good rest in these 3 days and prepare for the future training. After all, the road ahead is more rigorous. Douluo laughed. When Verna asked about their training arrangements after the new year, he did not answer, but told them that they would know when the time came. By the way, where is our team leader? He is usually the first to finish running. Why hasn't he finished today? Fang Ying asked in confusion. They had been lying here for more than 10 minutes, and there was no sign of Ma Hongjun. He went back a long time ago. He returned to the city as soon as the training was over. Douluo had been guarding outside the city. Even though Xiang Qishan had returned to the city, he had been watching the training of these little guys. His master and parents have moved to the spirit hall, so they hurried back to the city after running after this brat. Douluo looked thoughtful and said with some emotion, if it weren't for the amazing talent of this little monster, it would be easy for people to ignore that he is just a 7-year-old child. Finally, Douluo also returned to the city. Verna and the others discussed and decided to have a meal together in the evening. This time they would not invite Ma Hongjun. After all, it is normal for a 7-year-old kid to miss his parents. What a little kid. I don't know how he will cry when he sees his parents when he goes home. Class's tone was slightly sarcastic. Why don't we go and see? Verna suggested. Annie shook her head and said, I think we should forget it. It's rare for them to reunite. It's not good to disturb them if we go. Lance also nodded in agreement. Yes, after all, our captain is not very generous. A group of people looked at each other and walked decisively to the nearest restaurant. At this time, Marzianapang had already run back home. After venting his emotions, Marzianapang was so happy that he completely forgot about his physical fatigue. He even suggested that he cook dinner himself. Okay, I haven't eaten Marzianapang's food for a long time. I'll cook for you. You? Marziaxio blushed and said angrily, what's the matter? Do you look down on my skills? I tell you, I have been studying cooking at home for a while, and I have already surpassed. Okay, I get it. Can I ask you to help me? Hongjun decisively interrupted her chatter. If the little girl continued to talk, she could probably eat tomorrow's breakfast directly. You can also cook. Shia looked at her in surprise. Ma's mother didn't want her son to be laughed at, so she quickly stood up and said, Sister Shia, you don't know that. Even though this kid is not in tune all day, he can cook. When he was 3 or 4 years old, and his cooking skills are not ordinary, better than my mother. And he has also developed a lot of new ways of cooking, many of which I, who have lived for decades, have never eaten. Oh. Shia said in disbelief, I didn't expect it. Marzianapang, the teacher didn't know you were a master chef. Of course not, I'm a master. Marzianapang raised his head proudly, gave Shia a proud look and said, just sit here and wait. I will let you see your apprentice's cooking skills later. Along the way, Shia also brought more than a dozen servants. As early as when she entered the city, she arranged for people to buy vegetables. Marzianapang walked into the kitchen, skillfully checked the dishes in the kitchen, then picked up the kitchen knife, turned a beautiful knife flower in his hand, and began his performance. As a modern father, in order to please his wife and daughter, he is not bragging, his cooking skills are really good, and he can cook dishes from all over the world. Facing Marzianapang's rotating knife skills, Marziaxio stood aside consciously. She had agreed to help, but she became a loyal audience with stars in her eyes. Marzianapang called her out several times, but she shook her head and refused to go out, saying that she was learning cooking. It took nearly 2 hours for Marzianapang to come out of the kitchen with the lively Marziaxio, and then the dishes were brought to the table by the maids. Chapter 77 A Rare Tranquility. Godmother, please try it. I spent a lot of effort on this soup. It tastes really good. Marziaxio snatched Shia's bowl and stood up to serve Shia a bowl of soup. What effort did you put in? Hongjun looked at her speechlessly. Marziaxio glared back at him and said unconvincedly, I washed the mushrooms and watched the fire. How come it's not my doing? Marzianapang was speechless. Okay, you said you did it, so you did it. A good man doesn't fight with a woman, so let you, a little girl, pretend for a while. Mom, please try it. This stir-fried beef is really delicious. Marziaxio moved around the table, chopsticks flying. Dad, please try this. Marzianapang said this is very nourishing, especially for men. It's very good for the body. Dad Ma looked at the strange strips in the bowl with a strange look in his eyes. He always felt that his son had bad intentions and taught his little girl bad things. Why don't you eat it, Dad? It's delicious. Come and try it. Marziaxio's chopsticks flashed, and she picked up another one and put it into Ma's bowl. This is a good thing, son. You should have one too. Seeing that his black-hearted son was actually laughing there, Ma's father decisively picked up 2 and put them into his bowl. Dad, I'm still young. It's not suitable for me to eat this. You should eat it. As he said that, he picked up the strips in the bowl and wanted to put them into Ma's bowl, but Ma's father cleverly dodged him. Eat, son. You are too tired from training every day. You have to eat more to replenish yourself. Marzianapang also responded with a smile. You should eat more too, Dad. It's not a short journey from the town of Yagas. You must have been exhausted by the journey. Come and eat, Dad. Shia looked at this scene and felt a little funny. These two father and son are really funny. Although Ma's mother blushed slightly, she decided to ignore the two father and son and ate there by herself. Dad, brother, there are still many dishes. Why are you two pushing for them? Eat together. Ma Xiaoxiu didn't understand what the two were pushing for. She simply picked up a lot of dishes for each of them with chopsticks, and her smile became sweeter. Eat it, son. This is very nutritious. You eat it too, Dad. The father and son looked at each other and didn't say anything more. After a few bites, they finished the dishes in the bowl and then quickly picked up other dishes and put them in the bowl. They were all a little scared. Ma Xiaoxiu, this little girl, loved to pick up dishes too much. Godmother, try this fish again. It tastes great. I used to like it very much. And this, a dinner, a table of sumptuous dishes, and the maids were also waved away by Ma Hongjun, letting them eat their own. After all, it was a festive day, and it was not easy for these servants to follow all the way. Looking at the gorgeous fireworks rising from time to time outside the window, Ma Xiaopang smiled, finished a bowl of rice, and threw the bowl directly to Ma Xiaoxiu. Here, give me another bowl of rice. Ma Xiaoxiu glared at her brother who was climbing up the roof, but she still took the bowl and pressed it hard to fill it up for him. Eat, eat, I'll let you eat enough. However, Ma Xiaoxiu soon realized that this little rice was not enough. Are you a pig? Although he was the shortest one present, his round belly did not change at all. This was already the 5th bowl of rice that Ma Xiaoxiu had added. Another bowl. The daily consumption was already large, and Ma Hongjun was still in the period of growth, so his appetite was not ordinary. Can you be more polite? Ma Xiaoxiu roared angrily. There is still rice and more dishes. Go slowly. Ma's mother also rarely showed a doting look. Her son has been very sensible since he could remember, and he didn't make her worry much. On the contrary, this daughter who was more than 3 years older was often naughty and didn't look like a girl at all. Mom, you eat too. I haven't cooked for a long time, and my cooking skills are a little rusty. I will cook for you often in the future. Ma Xiaopang was digging rice while speaking vaguely. Well, Dad and Mom are not leaving. They will find a job in this city in the future. Ma's mother nodded with relief. This happy atmosphere made her flustered heart feel a little peaceful. Hurry up and eat. At night, until Dad, Mom and Ma Xiaoxiu fell asleep, Ma Hongjun shook his body, jumped and came to the roof of the dormitory. On the roof, there were 2 figures. One was Shia sitting on the ridge of the roof, and the other was Douluo standing there quietly. Why didn't those 2 guys, Douluo and Forel, come with us? Douluo looked at the bright moon in the sky and asked faintly. It was obvious that he had just arrived not long ago and was chatting with Shia. Shia glanced at Ma Hongjun who jumped up and then replied, they think it's too early to say what you said. The new pope is still too young. Not to mention his strength, his foundation is not stable, and it will definitely take a lot of time to lay out the backhand. So they decided to stay in the town of Agus. Can't bear to leave the academy you founded? Shia nodded and said, I guess so. After all, the school is the hard work of the 2 of them. They have invested their time and energy in it over the years. They just want to make more contributions to their hometown. Then he added, but if there is any situation, I will notify them to come back in time. Well, Douluo nodded lightly. That's fine. The Soul Masters we have in Wuhan City have now reached half of the entire continent. It's not advisable to act too hastily at this time, otherwise it will be easily noticed by the Empire. Douluo is very careful and has a lot of internal information. He has also guessed about the number of steps taken by the Wuhan Hall over the years. It was not until that person personally sent his daughter away that he completely guessed the purpose of that person. This continent has been peaceful for too long, so long that it will soon rust if it doesn't move. Only in troubled times can true strong men appear. Thousands and tens of thousands of years ago, there was chaos everywhere. Soul Masters killed each other, fought for territory, soul beasts destroyed wantonly, and their figures were everywhere on the continent. It was also in that chaotic era that there were so many people who broke through the limit and successfully broke through to level 100, becoming the legendary gods. Becoming a god at level 100 is not just a legend, it has also been recorded in many books. The god worshipped by the spirit hall is the angel god, and the Pope's lineage is the descendant of angels. As long as you carefully investigate a lot of information, you can always get some clues. Ma Xiaopang didn't say much, but sat next to Shia, put his hands behind his neck, and lay quietly, enjoying this rare tranquility. In the distance, the moon was bright, and even in winter, the stars were still shining, and the fireworks were competing for beauty. Various lanterns slowly rose into the sky, just like a prosperous scene. Chapter 78, Terrifying Soul Power Fluctuation. Get up, Ma Xiaopang, you are still sleeping in. At dawn, Ma Xiaoxiao angrily pushed open Ma Xiaopang's door, and pulled him out of bed. Ma Xiaoxiao, you are too much. I finally got a chance to sleep in today. What are you doing? Ma Xiaopang was helpless and afraid of hurting her with too much force, so he had to let Ma Xiaoxiao forcibly pull his sleeves to put on his clothes. It's so lively outside. Get up and take me sister out to play. Hurry up. At dawn, Ma Xiaoxiao was awakened by the noisy movement outside. She got up suddenly and woke up from her sleepiness. Her mind was full of the hustle and bustle of the street last night. Weird toys, novel food, funny performances. Ma Xiaoxiao is a little girl after all. She has lived in the countryside since she was a child. She goes to bed on time every night. She has never seen such a scene before, and she just wants to go shopping. What's so lively about it? It's the same every day. Can't we go another day? Hongjun had no choice but to be pushed into the washroom. He wiped his face casually and was dragged out. I said, slow down, Ma Xiaoxiao. As soon as she went out, Ma Xiaoxiao was like a mouse out of a cage, and she ran into the crowd. Ma Xiaopang hurried to catch up. What are you doing, Ma Xiaopang? I'm the elder sister. Seeing that Ma Xiaopang was pulling her arm, Ma Xiaoxiao struggled hard for a while, but couldn't break free, so she glared at him angrily. Let go. Ma Xiaopang dragged Ma Xiaoxiao's hand and said, there are all kinds of people on the street. Be careful that someone will get stuck. Get stuck. Ma Xiaoxiao said in a daze. What do you mean? There are too many bad guys. People like you who have no strength will be kidnapped by human traffickers if you are not careful. Where can I find you when the time comes? Hongjun acted like an adult and educated him righteously. I'm already 11 years old. How could I be deceived by human traffickers? Ma Xiaoxiao argued angrily. She seriously suspected that Ma Xiaopang was insulting her intelligence. This is the spirit hall. There are soul masters everywhere. What if the human trafficker is a famous soul master? Wouldn't it be a matter of minutes to deal with you? Ma Xiaopang continued to coax and deceive. Ma Xiaoxiao's face gradually changed, and after hesitating for a while, she finally let Ma Xiaopang pull her hand and whispered, okay, then, hurry up and take this sister to have fun. Okay. It must be said that the two siblings are both foodies. They just looked at the fun things and didn't buy any of them. They were full of all kinds of delicacies in their hands, eating until their mouths were full of oil. You should be careful, Ma Xiaoxiao. The food is all over your clothes, and you may be beaten by your mother when you go back later. Ma Xiaopang looked at Ma Xiaoxiao, who was eating with relish. In her hand, she was holding a piece of thigh meat of an unknown soul beast, which was golden and shiny, which greatly increased her appetite. Don't worry, it will be clean after washing. Rural children don't have to be so particular. They just wipe the fruits picked from the trees and eat them. They also wash their clothes again and again, as long as they can be worn. Be a lady, be a lady. If you continue like this, you will be fat and round in a short time. Who will like you then? Ma Xiaopang continued to deceive. Humph, nonsense. Ma Xiaoxiao glared, wiped the oil stains on the corners of her mouth with her sleeve, and said unconvincedly, I'm a sister who can't get fat. I will definitely not get fat. After saying that, she took another bite of meat, and raised her head unconvincedly. Ma Xiaopang quietly pinched Ma Xiaoxiao's chubby little face and weighed it. Touch it yourself. You have flesh now. What will you become when you grow up? Will you be able to get married then? Ma Xiaopang, take your claws away from me. Ma Xiaoxiao opened Ma Xiaopang's hand, and her bright eyes seemed to be spitting fire. My younger brother is getting bolder and bolder. He dares to pull his sister's face in the street and say that my sister can't get married. It's just, a man can't stand it, but my grandmother can't stand it. He dares to openly challenge his sister's authority. Ma Xiaopang. Ma Xiaoxiao gritted her teeth. The meat in her hand suddenly felt dull. She clenched her fist again and again, and it was already greasy. Looking for a fight. Soon, a strange scene was staged on the street. A ferocious little girl was carrying a roasted leg and chasing a little fat boy. Sisters Ioxio, calm down. This is not good. It will damage your image as a lady. Marzianapang was agile and dodged cleverly every time, but he always stuck to Marzianapang to avoid getting separated accidentally. Look, is that little fat boy our team leader? Jechunfeng and class walked out of the restaurant and looked at the two people running on the street in confusion. It seems it's a bit like. Class and Jechunfeng looked at each other. They had nothing to do, so they agreed to relax together today. So he is such a captain. At such a young age, he is obsessed with women. Alas, his future cultivation will be bumpy. The two nodded in tacit understanding, and their expressions were even a little regretful. Let's go. It's better to pretend that we didn't see this, otherwise the captain will beat us up. Class said seriously. Jechunfeng also nodded in agreement. You are right. Let's leave quickly. This place is not safe. Soon, the two disappeared in the crowd. Hongjun subconsciously looked in that direction, but only saw two familiar backs. Why are these two guys here? Marzianapang subconsciously stopped. However, this pause was also caught up by Marzianapang. Stinky brother, where are you going to run to? Take my stick. Marzianapang jumped up, and the meat leg in her hand flew up, hitting Marzianapang's fiery red hair with greasy oil. Marzianapang. Hongjun touched the oil all over his head. He could guess that his hair was shining with oil without looking at him. You are too much. You actually attacked me by surprise. Hongjun touched his head with both hands and wiped it on Marzianapang's face. Ah. You are too much, Marzianapang. Marzianapang was completely furious. However, when Marzianapang was about to pounce on Hongjun, a terrifying wave suddenly rushed over, and it swept the entire street in an instant. What a powerful soul power wave. Hongjun sensed it in an instant. This was an extremely powerful soul power wave, and it was swept out from the inside of Wuhan City. It was most likely from the central Wuhan City. The horrifying soul power fluctuations were not concealed at all, and the impact was indiscriminate. In an instant, the civilians of the entire Wuhan city were shocked. Some of them even fell to the ground with their buttocks, and they didn't recover for a long time. Marzianapang was quick and quickly supported Marzianapang to prevent her from being knocked down. Let's go back quickly. The street was quiet in an instant, and the originally noisy atmosphere seemed to be punctured in an instant, and the scene was clear in an instant. I owed 15 chapters. It's scary to think about it. Chapter 79 Kayak Sunji is gone. Quick, have you found out what the reason is? Inside the spirit hall, there was already chaos. Many guards were frightened by the powerful soul power fluctuations. At first, they thought that there was an enemy invasion, but after searching for a long time, they did not find anything. No need to look. It's not an enemy invasion. Everyone, please stand at your post. At this time, Juhuagwen, Ghost Douluo and others came out one after another. After comforting the guards in the hall, they slowly walked towards the Pope's hall. Your Highness, the Pope made a big noise this time. Yes, I'm afraid that all the great priests have been alarmed. Juhuagwen was a little panicked. He was afraid that the matter would be completely exposed. After all, he was also involved in this matter. If he was found to have plotted to murder the previous pope, he would most likely die. Ghost Douluo was much calmer. After all, as a titled Douluo, he still had his own confidence. Let's go and take a look. The center of the spirit hall belongs to the Pope's hall, and behind the Pope's hall is where many priests gather. At this time, a group of priests and elders who are rarely seen on weekdays, all gathered together. Humph, we can't wait any longer. Let's break in. An old man with white hair and beard was furious. He is the fourth priest in the Pope's palace and a loyal follower of the descendants of angels. At the moment when the soul power burst out just now, he sensed that it was the special soul power unique to the angel spirit hall, and it was the soul power fluctuation of the previous Pope Kan Ringsu. The Pope is still inside. If we break in at this time, The second priest, Golden Crocodile Douluo, stretched out his hand and stopped his body and said with a serious look in his eyes, "Let's wait a little longer. The chief priest should be here soon." The chief priest he was talking about was the former elder of the spirit hall, Kyan Minksu's grandfather, Kyan Zunji's father, Kyan Daoliu, a peak level Douluo who has already cultivated to level 99. What on earth is Bibi Dong doing in there? The power of the priests is great, and they are not too afraid of the new pope who has just taken office. At this time, a group of priests are a little irritated, because behind the gate in front of them is the retreat place of the popes of all generations, and it is also the place where Kyan Sunji recuperates after being injured. "Great priest, you are finally here." At this moment, a voice sounded, and everyone subconsciously turned their heads, only to find that someone had appeared among them at some point. The man had a calm face, without a trace of emotional fluctuations, just like an ordinary old man. However, this is the most terrifying part. The people present are the strongest fighting force of the spirit hall. All of them are titled Douluo level perverts, but just now none of them noticed that the old man had quietly come to them. If this happened on the battlefield, they would probably die without knowing how they died. "All of you retreat." Kyan Daoliu waved his hand, his eyes calm, and his deep eyes seemed to see through everything inside the door made of black iron. "But, great priest, the fluctuation just now." Kyan Daoliu looked at him with a faint look, and there seemed to be a flash of light in his deep eyes, which made this titled Douluo feel a palpitation. "We will leave now. We will leave now." Soon, a group of titled Douluo withdrew. Even in the strict hierarchy of the spirit hall, strength is a standard, and Kyan Daoliu's strength is the strongest among this group of people. "Okay, open the door, Bibi Dong." Kyan Daoliu's lips moved slightly, but the sound shook the entire iron door, and even Bibi Dong who was hiding inside was greatly affected. However, soon, the fluctuation was offset, and the water in the pool rippled on its own, and actually swallowed up the soul power fluctuation. Bibi Dong slowly opened her eyes, her brows were furrowed, her whole body was soaked in the pool, and the mucus almost submerged her entire neck. Opposite Bibi Dong, there was a human figure hanging overhead. His limbs were tied up, and he was hanging there like a mummy, without any movement. HMPH, is he here again? Bibi Dong stood up, slowly revealing her beautiful upper body, but as she gradually stood up, her lower body turned into a spider. The huge thing might be a butt, but it looked disgusting. Several feet slowly crawled out of the pool, and finally turned into a pair of slender long legs. After putting on a coat, she once again returned to the image of an elegant and noble queen. The mummy was also slowly put down, falling weakly on the steps, colliding with the stone steps, and even making a strange collision sound. With a wave of his hand, the door slowly opened, and Kyan Daoliu took a step casually, and walked directly for dozens of meters to Bibi Dong. "You've gone too far." A terrifying airflow blew around him. Even Bibi Dong, who had become a titled Douluo, could not resist it at all. She could only use her staff to support herself, and slid down more than 10 meters, before she could stabilize herself. However, strangely, the furnishings in the house were not affected at all, and even the mummy was still lying there quietly. "I went too far. He ruined my life, but you think I went too far?" Bibi Dong's eyes were filled with resentment, and her hands were creaking. Alas. Kyan Daoliu sighed, and finally put down his raised right hand. "After all, he is your master, and Zua's father." Bibi Dong laughed out loud, her face full of madness. "Ha ha ha. Master, father, bah." Bibi Dong swung her staff and hit the mummy directly, and the whole body flew out. "He's just a beast. HMPH, I don't care what you did, but he has learned enough lessons. I won't allow you to continue to torture my son's body." Before the mummy landed on the ground, it floated up out of thin air, and landed behind Kyan Daoliu. "I hope you can take care of yourself, otherwise don't blame me for not considering face." In the dark room, silence. Everything seemed to have never happened, except for Bibi Dong's heavy breathing and the fluctuations of the sticky pool water. There was no other sound. Consider face. Bibi Dong's eyes became more and more red with resentment, and she threw the scepter fiercely, directly inserted into the seat on the high platform, and the door slowly closed. In the lobby of the spirit hall, whether it was the priests or the elders, they were still waiting anxiously. What on earth is going on? Why hasn't the chief priest come out after entering? The fourth priest walked around in the hall, anxious and uneasy. He was a hot-tempered person. Can you please sit down? My head hurts from walking around. The third priest was also a little anxious. Kyan Zunji grew up under the eyes of the old priests. Ever since he was seriously injured, he has been in seclusion to recuperate. Except for Bibidang who can come and go at will, no one else has entered. Everyone, please disperse. At this moment, a vicissitudes of life voice sounded out of nowhere in the hall. It's the chief priest. Chief priest, how is Zunji? Is he okay? Someone asked in the hall. After a long time, the voice sounded again. Strive to arrest Tang Heo and avenge Zunji. Chapter 80 Extraordinary New Year's Eve. Teacher, what happened? As soon as he comforted Masayaxio, Hongjun came to the living room with a serious look. It's not clear yet. The old man has gone in to find out the news. I believe that there will be news soon. Dia sat in the main seat, quietly sipping tea, but from the tea that had long lost its temperature, Dia's mood was not calm. That fluctuation seemed not something that an ordinary soul master could burst out. Even a soul Douluo would find it difficult to burst out such a terrifying soul power fluctuation. It was most likely caused by a titled Douluo. The titled Douluos in the spirit city, except those who were assigned to perform tasks, generally lived in the spirit hall. Hongjun did not continue to speak, but bought himself a cup of tea and sat there quietly like a little adult. Seeing this, Madad did not come in to disturb him. After all, he could not intervene in the affairs of the Soul Master. Soon, waves of hoofbeats and trampling sounds were heard outside. It's the guards of the spirit hall. It seems that something has happened. The sound lasted for nearly 5 minutes before gradually fading away. It seems that something serious has happened. So many guards have been dispatched. Masayanapang took another sip of tea, his face normal. Shia nodded and said, tonight is destined to be an extraordinary New Year's Eve. Douluo didn't come back until the afternoon. What happened, Master? Masayanapang stood up and asked. Douluo took a sip of water and replied, the previous pope passed away. The grand priest personally ordered that the whole continent be wanted for Haoshan Douluo. This year seems to be not peaceful. Kyan Zunji is completely dead. Masayanapang looked at him in surprise. Douluo's eyes condensed, and he turned his head abruptly. How do you know about the previous pope? Oh. Masayanapang was speechless for a moment, and didn't know how to answer for a while. Can I tell you that I'm a prophet? I have watched the anime. I know who the real murderer is. I know the cause and effect of the matter, and I know who the powerful enemy of the spirit hall will be in the future. Well, no one will believe it, even if I tell it. Can I tell you that I was just guessing? Masayanapang scratched his head awkwardly and continued. I once overheard from my teammates that the reason why the previous pope retired early was because he was seriously injured in the battle with Clear Sky Douluo, so he had to pass the position to the current pope. Well, that incident did cause a sensation back then. The previous pope was seriously injured when he came back. When he entered the city, almost everyone on the way saw it. It was impossible to hide it, even if we wanted to. Douluo nodded, agreeing with his explanation. This time the commotion was not small. Almost all the priests came, and the chief priest personally ordered a continent-wide wanted warrant for Clear Sky Douluo Tang Heo. That is the youngest titled Douluo on the continent. He has been missing for the past few years, and no one knows where he is hiding. Are you going out with me, old man? Shia seemed to hear the helplessness in Douluo's words. Douluo nodded and said, well, in addition to the 4 elders leading the way, all the 17 deputy elders, except the 2 who were in seclusion, were sent out this time, vowing to avenge the previous pope. When are we leaving? Hongjun asked. The guards sent out to search and deliver messages have already set off. We will act separately under the leadership of the 3 elders to track down Tang Heo's whereabouts. Douluo continued, in that battle, Tang Heo was promoted to title Douluo, and his strength increased greatly. He not only injured 2 elders, but also seriously injured the previous pope who possessed an angel spirit. But in the end, I heard that he also escaped with serious injuries. The reason why there has been no news about him in these years is probably that he has been hiding somewhere to recover from his injuries. Shire asked in confusion. The Haoshan sect is the largest sect in the world. Is it impossible for Tang Heo to hide back in the Haoshan sect for refuge? Tang Heo has long left the Haoshan sect, and the Haoshan sect has completely expelled him from the sect and closed the mountain. Douluo shook his head and explained. Ma Xiaopang on the side did not speak. His face was strange. He knew about Tang Heo, and he also knew where he was hiding, but he dared not say anything at this time. He could only listen silently. He originally thought that Bibi Dong had already killed Kayang Sunji completely, but he never thought that Kayang Sunji would make such a big noise at the last moment. This may be unwillingness. After all, she is his apprentice and the mother of his daughter. Although he did too much to keep her, he never thought that he would die in such a way. Poor little brother Tang Heo, it's really a case of sitting at home, and the pot comes from the sky. Ma Xiaopang sighed silently on the side. Poor Tang Heo not only lost his wife, but was also abandoned by the sect. It was really miserable. And the originally bustling Wuhan city also became quiet under this turmoil. There were fewer people on the bustling streets, and the people coming and going were all a group of soul masters who came out of the Wuhan hall in batches. Originally, they could have a good year, but they encountered such a thing on the last day. Not only could he not be with his family on New Year's Eve, but he also had to travel to various parts of the empire in the wind and snow. Douluo did not leave immediately. At his age, most of his family members had passed away. He did not have a wife, so he had no so-called descendants. He was a typical lonely old man. Try my cooking, master. These are all made by me personally. Ma Xiaopang picked up the dishes and introduced them. Although many things looked like farm stir fries, the taste was really rare. Douluo tasted it and nodded with a smile. Well, it's really good. I didn't expect you to be able to do this. Hongjun laughed and said, children of poor people grow up early. There is nothing we can do about it. No one can escape eating this. Because Douluo was present, Ma Xiaoxio was much more honest. She hardly spoke during the whole process. She just kept her head down and ate. Hongjun found it a little funny. He did not expect that his naughty sister also had such a side. She was even afraid of strangers. After dinner, Douluo simply told Hongjun and Shire and left. It was time for him to set off. Ma Xiaopang also learned that Bear Demon Douluo was not in the search team this time, and he would be the one to teach him the next training. Ma Xiaopang swallowed his saliva with a sob. That violent bear taught him the whole time. He couldn't even imagine how unimaginable the future would be. Running around the perimeter of Wuhan City? This was probably just an appetizer. I have to speed up my training. Although according to the current situation, if I practice step by step, I will definitely surpass Tang San in the future. But do you know the butterfly effect? Who can tell what will happen to the protagonist? Only when my strength is improved can I survive better in the future. Counting the days, Tang San should be 8 years old at this time. He entered Shrek Academy at the age of 12, reached level 60 at the age of 22, and became a god at the age of 24. In this way, he has at most 16 years left. During these 16 years, he had to destroy Tang San's chances, and even try to kill him. The worst result would be that he would become a god, but he had to become a god as well. Otherwise how could he resist Tang San after he became a god? Chapter 81 The First Encounter with Yan. 3 days passed in a flash, and good times are always short. During these 3 days, Ma Xiaopang took a rare few days of laziness and slept comfortably. In addition to practicing soul power every day, he did not do any other special training. Ma Xiaopang, you are late again. Before he stepped into the hall, a voice like a bear's roar shocked Hongjun's steps, and almost turned around to run away. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and get over here. At this time, except for Xiangmo Douluo, the other 9 people in the hall were all present. Hongjun looked at the pendulum clock in the distance. It was exactly 7 o'clock, but this old guy said he was late. Here I come. Ma Xiaopang ran forward happily and stood at the front of the team. Anyway, he was the shortest and could not block the sight of others. Don't you have a sense of time? You are late for the first day of training in the new year. As the captain, don't you know what is a role model? Zion Kishan stared with his eyes, his hands on his hips, and he turned into a black Rakshasa. I'm sorry, instructor. I'm late and I'm willing to be punished. Alas, facing this old naughty boy who deliberately targeted him, Ma Xiaopang had no other choice but to admit his mistake first, so that he wouldn't find more excuses to make a fuss. HMPH, forget it this time. This is the first special training in the new year, so I won't punish you too. It won't happen again next time. Seeing that Ma Hongjun admitted his mistake sincerely, Zion Kishan didn't say much. Today's training is very simple. It's just a competition with the freshman team of the previous spirit hall. Let you understand how big the gap is, and kill the arrogance of you little brats. Xiangmo Douluo had already discussed with another Douluo that a competition would not only add pressure to the previous spirit master team, but also dampen the spirit of this new team. Sometimes, being too strong will break easily. Occasionally encountering some setbacks may make them practice more desperately. Competing with last year's freshman martial arts team? Kinnan exclaimed. I remember that team last year had 3 geniuses whose spirit power reached level 26. Annie and the others also looked solemn. They were also fortunate to witness last year's selection competition. Especially the 2 men and 1 woman. They were far ahead of the players of the same generation, and their strength should not be underestimated. In their opinion, those 3 people were monsters that were not inferior to Ma Hongjun. Okay, I was worried about not finding an opponent, and it seems to be a good idea to abuse the Pope's direct disciple. Ma Xiaopang's mouth curled up a strange arc, rolled up his sleeves, and looked like a second-rate guy who came from a gangster background. I say Ma Xiaopang, you have to have a limit to your pride. She is the Pope's direct disciple, and reached level 26 last year. You, in level 24, want to deal with her? Verna sneered disdainfully. I'm level 25. What did you say? Verna subconsciously thought she had heard it wrong. I said I'm level 25. Ma Xiaopang turned around and rolled his eyes at her. When did you break through? Class couldn't help asking. On New Year's Eve. Ma Xiaopang replied nonchalantly. I felt my soul power surge while eating, and then I broke through. Mockery. This is simply naked mockery. Jechun Feng couldn't help but complain. You're so versatile. Sure enough, comparing yourself to others is really annoying. Annie couldn't help rolling her eyes. It has been nearly a month, but she is still at level 23 since the beginning of the competition. In 4 months, she will be 13 years old, while this little fat boy has just turned 7. How unfair is God? Okay, you guys, instead of envying others here, why not turn this energy into motivation for cultivation? Some soul masters often practice slowly in the early stage, but once they break through a critical point, the speed of cultivation will change qualitatively. Bear Demon Douluo comforted everyone. After all, not everyone is a monster. Ma Hongjun's cultivation talent has never appeared even in historical records. At the same time, in the big fighting soul field in Wuhan City, a group of young men and women have gathered. The 3 people standing in the front are Hulina and Ziyu, who appeared not long ago, and Yan, who has a hot temper and has the same fiery red hair as Ma Xiaopang. These guys are really slow. Are they too scared to come? Yan laughed with disdain. At this time last year, they challenged the previous new generation Spirit Master team. As a result, with only 3 of them, they almost wiped out the opponent's main team. The martial soul fusion skills of Hulina and Ziyu are simply hard to defend. Especially in the early stage, when the mental strength is weak. Once you are hit, it is difficult to get rid of it. After waiting for nearly half an hour, a team member laughed and said, it seems that brother Yan is right. These little guys are probably afraid. Humph, they don't even dare to come. There will be no use in the future. A group of team members were very dissatisfied. The time was already 8:30, but no one came. They were very dissatisfied with this waste of time. Let's go, Nana. It seems that those cowards are not coming. Yan stomped his feet back and forth on the spot, urging them to leave quickly. Hulina waved her hand and said, okay Yan, can't you just stand there and wait patiently? Even Hulina was helpless with Yan's impatience. She felt that communicating with Yan was a test of patience. Ziyu at the side also interrupted and said, the agreed time for the duel is 9 o'clock. It's not time yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Will you embarrass the instructor if you leave early? The group of people gradually quieted down. Whether it was Hulina or ZU, what they said in the team was still very effective. HMPH, then I'll wait a little longer. I want to see if these cowards dare to come. Who are you talking about? Suddenly, a childish voice came from a distance. The coward is talking about you. Yan spoke subconsciously, but halfway through the words, he realized something and glared at them. Hello, coward. Ma Xiaopang walked forward with a smile, followed by his teammates. They just swaggered in. Even in the face of Yan and others' eyes that seemed to want to eat people, they were not afraid at all. I'm going to kill you, little fat man. Yan was furious, and his fists were swirling with heat, and he was about to punch them. Yan, suppress your temper. I've told you so many times, can't you remember it? Ghost Douluo and Bear Demon Douluo appeared on the high platform at the same time. They were the organizers of this duel. But mentor, this little fat guy just scolded me. Yang pointed at Hongjun unwillingly, his eyes seemed to want to eat him. Hongjun responded, did I scold you? Which ear did you hear me scold you? Who called you a coward just now? It wasn't me. There were so many witnesses here. That's right. Please don't slander me there. Je Chunfeng also stood up and said, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 80 to the battle begins. Little fatty, wait for me. We'll see how I beat you to a pulp in the ring. Yan angrily stretched out his fist towards Hongjun, making a provocative gesture. Then you better be careful. Ma Xiaopang raised both hands, raised his middle finger, and pointed it at the ground. Yan was stunned for a moment, then reacted. Little fatty, you're looking for death. Although he had never seen this strange gesture before, it did not prevent him from understanding it. It was simply too much. Even Hulina's face could not help but show a hint of anger. Okay, what's there to argue about? We'll see how I beat you to a pulp in the ring. Ziyu grabbed Yan's arm and pulled him to his side. The fighting arena in Wuhan City is very lively. There are fights from morning to night, and people place bets every day. It is one of the largest industries in Wuhan City. Little guys, this competition is very simple, a 10-person team competition. Xiangmo Douluo stood on the high platform, acting as a referee, like a copper wall standing on the top. In addition to the prohibition of using cold weapons, stop when you have reached a certain point. If I find someone maliciously attacking and causing the enemy to be disabled, what will be the consequences? I believe you also know. Xiang Qishan's voice turned cold, and he was about to use his soul power and throat. Then now, the fight officially begins. The powerful voice echoed throughout the venue, and because of the special nature of this match, no other spectators were allowed to enter. Hulina and others stood at the far left of the ring, while Hongjun and others stood opposite them. Both sides had already drawn their swords and stared at each other with eager eyes. There was no limit on the number of people in this match. The regular players of both sides, including the substitutes, took the field, with 10 people on each side. However, there was a big gap in the soul power level. Hulina and Ziyu and others had reached level 29, and they could break through to level 30 at any time and enter the realm of Soul Master. As for the other 7 people, although they were not as good as them, their strength was also around level 25. After all, those who could stand out in the martial soul selection competition were naturally not mediocre. On the other hand, the highest level of soul power on Ma Xiaopang's side is only level 25, and most of them are around level 22 or 23. Don't be afraid, everyone. The opponents are also a group of great soul masters. We are also great soul masters. The gap is not big. We will act according to the tactics later and beat them. Ma Xiaopang stretched out his hand to cheer up his teammates. No matter whether they win or lose, they must play with momentum. Little fatty, prepare to die. Yan took the lead and released his martial soul, Flame Lord. Flame Lord is a top level strong attack beast martial soul with dual attributes of fire and earth, and both defense and attack characteristics. Moreover, his soul ring ratio is also very high, with 2 yellow soul rings flashing, both of which are at the century level. As Yan released his martial soul, Hulina and others also released their martial souls one after another, all of which were yellow, and all of them were 2. It's worthy of being the seed team of the Spirit Hall. The selected ones are all top geniuses. Ma Xiaopang sighed silently in his heart. The 9 people on my side also all have yellow spirit rings, and their talents are not bad. Recalling when I was in Francis College, 90% of them only had 10-year spirit rings, and it was rare to have a 100-year spirit ring. As for my small village, well, as long as you have spirit power, you can be called a genius. Remember, don't let those 2 use the martial soul fusion technique. Hongjun had already thought about it. With their current mental power, facing the red mist after Hulina and Ziyu merged, even he was not sure. The best way is to prevent them from merging, and use the method of surrounding a point and attacking reinforcement. Use yourself as bait, to attract the attention of Hulina and others, and then the 9 people on our side will besiege the 7 people on the other side and defeat the enemy as quickly as possible. Since they have become teammates, they must be trusted. As long as we take advantage of the opponent's underestimation of the enemy, and we launch a fierce attack from the beginning, we will definitely be able to achieve unexpected results. Then, come on, everyone. As the voice sounded, Ma Xiaopang also directly showed his spirit ring, which was actually a yellow and a light purple. The second soul ring is actually a soul ring of nearly 1,000 years. Ghost Douluo's face also changed, and he exclaimed. The second soul ring has reached 1,000 years, which cannot be simply explained by the rapid cultivation of soul power. There are many inexplicable factors mixed in it. Yeah, I was surprised for a long time when I saw it for the first time. Xiangmo Douluo pretended to be nonchalant, but the smile on the corner of his mouth betrayed him. Xiang Qishan thought silently in his heart, I received such a genius, and it was worth the quarrel between me and that old guy. Hulina and others also froze. The second soul ring is nearly 1,000 years old, which is far beyond the limit of the soul ring that a soul master can absorb. Moreover, the difference between 1,000 years and 100 years, the skills given by the soul ring will not be at the same level. Whoosh. Taking advantage of the moment when everyone was stunned, Ma Xiaopang instantly spread his 6 wings and flew directly into the sky. Not good. Everyone, hurry up and disperse. Hulina and others also watched the last game and knew that Ma Hongjun had the flying skill, and the second soul skill was a range attack, which was extremely powerful. Second soul skill, Phoenix Rain. However, it was still a step too late. Fang Ying's chains had already been deployed, and Anna's Ice Phoenix was also released. Together with the iron chains, they set up a series of ice walls, blocking the enemy's steps. Defense. Seeing that the situation was not right, Ziyu hurriedly made arrangements and ordered everyone to take a defensive posture. Yang directly deployed his martial soul, set up an earth wall, raised it high, and supported it in the sky. Bang, bang, bang. Countless fire points as big as raindrops fell in pieces, densely packed. This is the time, brothers. Kras, Jechunfeng and Verna rushed out first. Kinnan even raised his tripod high and actually formed a rare gravity field, which directly fixed several auxiliary and control systems that were given special attention in place. Zhang Fei, the meat shield, rushed in like a wild bull, and Annie froze the ground with all her strength in the back, forcibly freezing several people in the back row. Not good. Protect Liz and the others. Ziyu roared and hurried back to help. However, Ma Xiaopang rushed down directly from the sky. Don't run, I'll play with you guys. Ma Xiaopang has flying skills. The speed of his 6 wings spreading out seems to turn into a gust of wind. He strikes out with a palm and hits Ziyu directly on the back of his shoulder, knocking him flying. Humph, you dare to sneak attack. Yan locked his eyes on Hongjun and directly released his second soul skill. Second soul skill, Void Dragon Claw. Chapter 83, A Surprising Victory. Yan used his second soul skill, Void Dragon Claw, and the Flame Lord behind him seemed to be a giant monster formed by magma. It twisted with Yan's body and attacked Ma Hongjun from behind. Just you? Ma Xiaopang flew up and instantly escaped from Yan's attack range, and then directly used his first soul skill. Your trick is useless to me. Yan sneered and did not intend to give Ma Xiaopang a chance. He directly used his first soul skill, Blood Knight Shroud, and then borrowed the defensive characteristics of his martial soul to resist the attack. However, the moment the evil phoenix assault touched Yan, it unexpectedly turned a corner, bypassed Yan, and attacked Ulina, who had already come to help from behind. What? Yan's face changed. He knew that Ma Xiaopang's first soul skill was a locking skill that would not stop until it hit the object, but he never expected that this soul skill could be controlled autonomously. There are many things you can't imagine. In addition to honing his martial arts skills, Ma Xiaopang also studied the subtle use of soul power every day. After many days of research, he found that when he used his first soul skill, part of his soul power condensed into a line and attached, which could control its movement trajectory. At this time, Hulina had already faced Jie Chunfeng, who was a sensitive attack type. With a fox charm, Jie Chunfeng, who was a sensitive attack type, was stunned in place, as if he was possessed. Watch her eyes. Verna was also a sensitive attack type. In a split second, she decisively kicked Jie Chunfeng away, who was bewitched, and her body also rushed out. Their goal was to deal with the opponent's back row first, and facing Hulina's charm, she had no choice for a while, and did not dare to get too close. Nana, be careful. Ziyu and Yan roared almost at the same time. However, they were still a step too slow. Just as Hulina was about to jump away, she was hit by the Zifeng's sudden attack. The powerful flame soul power burst directly caused terrible damage to her. Good opportunity. At the same time, Zhang Fei, who was a defensive type, rushed up without knowing when, and knocked away several people around him without caring about anything. He flew up and hit Hulina's abdomen with a shoulder strike. There was no mercy at all. Hulina vomited sour water and flew straight out. Ziyu and Yan jumped up at the first time, trying to catch Hulina, who was knocked away. Did I let you go? However, Ma Xiaopang flashed and flew in front of Ziyu. His target was not Yang from beginning to end. He was worried about Ziyu and Hulina's martial soul fusion technique. If Hulina and Ziyu had performed martial soul fusion under the protection of their teammates at the beginning, there would not be the current result. However, they were too careless, underestimated their opponents, and overestimated themselves. When they competed with Tangsun and others, they relied on their soul power to reach the Soul King level. The other team members basically had no chance to make a move, and the whole process was just watching the three of them perform. Since they are a team, they naturally have to cooperate, instead of acting independently. Ma Xiaopang made the deployment for this purpose, giving priority to dealing with the back row, while he held back 3 people, and prevented the 2 from merging. HMPH, Moonblade. A curved moonblade instantly appeared in Ziyu's hand, emitting a cold light under the illumination of the bright light. Ma Xiaopang used his wings to fan, directly blocking his moonblade, and then swung it in the air, hitting Ziyu so hard that he could only resist. Vajra kick. Ma Xiaopang concentrated his soul power and the sole of his foot. The originally ordinary kick collided with the moonblade and only damaged the trouser leg. Obviously one was level 25 and the other was level 29, but at this time, Ma Xiaopang, who was at a lower level, was suppressing Ziyu. While Yan was catching Hulina, Kinnan and others decisively changed their targets, and even Annie deployed her martial soul ice phoenix and rushed over. The 3 people in the back row were almost instantly hit and rolled off the ring, and one of them fainted directly. The other 4 spirit masters wanted to resist, but they were unable to move due to the triple control of Fang Ying, Kinnan and Annie. The preemptive strike had a miraculous effect. In the blink of an eye, the situation on the field had undergone a terrible reversal. HMPH, did you formulate this tactic? Ghost Douluo snorted coldly. In his opinion, only this violent title Douluo could come up with such a risky and strong attack. However, Xian Qishan shook his head with a smile and said with a meaningful expression, I only told them that there was a duel this morning. As for the tactics, they discussed it randomly. I didn't mention anything. What? Ghost Douluo was stunned, and then he looked at the ring again. After scanning the circle, his eyes fell firmly on the fiery red figure of Ma Xiaopang. Falling leaf palm. Hongjun turned sideways, then lowered his head and squatted, avoiding Ziyu's attack. Finally, he directly condensed his soul power on his palm and used the falling leaf palm that had been ready for a long time and hit Ziyu's abdomen with one palm. Puff. The power of this palm should not be underestimated. Ziyu spurted out a mouthful of acid water, and a trace of blood also overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He was completely knocked out. Brother. Although Hulina was hit twice, her injury was not serious because of her advantage in soul power. However, as soon as she stood up, she saw her brother being knocked away. Little fatty, you are looking for death. Seeing Hulina's anger, Yan rushed forward first. Although his martial soul was powerful, he only had 2 soul powers. His close combat attack was very strong, but once he was pulled away, he was like a stone hitting cotton, and was of little use. Hongjun decisively flew high into the sky and moved away. Then he used his speed advantage to drop down with 1,000-pound weight and cooperated with Verna to kill another player. At this time, there were only 16 people left on the field, and Hongjun's side did not lose a single player. Boom. Crass was knocked to the ground, and the remaining few people also broke through the defense. With the soul power of level 25, Crass could not resist at all and was kicked away directly. Fortunately, Lanzi and Minimum quickly applied the healing effect, allowing Crass to recover. However, Hulina and others had no choice. 2 healing systems and 1 control system were knocked off the ring. Next, we can have some fun. Maziadapang withdrew his 6 wings and landed in front of Lanzi and Minimum. At the same time, his feet firmly stepped on Ziyu, who was curled up into a ball. Verna and others looked around, and they were surrounded. Hongjun, take your feet away. Hulina's eyes were sinister, and her eyes were fixed on Hongjun. She was really angry. It was obviously a perfect game, but who would have thought that it would turn out like this at the beginning? Not only was she injured, but Ziyu was also stepped on by someone. Chapter 84, The Horror of Soul Fusion Technique. You little brat, take your feet away quickly, or I'll break your arms and legs. Yan's face was ferocious, his eyes seemed to be spitting fire, and the Flame Lord spirit behind him was even more fierce, showing a terrifying sense of oppression. Since you all beg me like this, I will reluctantly let him go. Maziadapang put his hands on his waist, raised his hair proudly, and then kicked Ziyu in the abdomen, kicking him directly out. Yan and Hulina hurried forward and caught Ziyu. Brother, how are you? Is it serious? Hulina held Ziyu in her arms, full of anxiety, and Yan rushed up again, a hot-tempered reckless man. He was acting perfectly. Ziyu coughed violently for a while, then struggled to get up, and comforted his sister. It's okay, Nana. Although this little fat guy is strong, he avoided the vital points several times. I was only slightly injured. After hearing this, Hulina's expression eased a little. Not long ago, she saw her brother being stepped on by Hongjun, and the anger almost made her go crazy. That kid dared to step on you. Unforgivable. Hulina helped Ziyu up, and the two stood side by side. Their tall figures immediately attracted the attention of the remaining few people on the field. In this short period of time, Hongjun avoided the crazy Yan and successfully attacked again, taking down 1 person. And his teammates also went forward bravely. After all, there were 2 auxiliary soul masters in the back who were healing and adding bonuses, which basically made up for the difference in soul power between the 2 sides. Yan, you go help the others, and we will deal with this brat. Hulina waved to Yan, asking him to support other teammates. At this time, she had already shaken hands with Yan, and the martial soul fusion technique was unstoppable. Seeing this, Yan decisively gave up on Hongjun and rushed towards the others. Maziadapang attacked again, wounding one of them, then stood there quietly, laughing and shouting, 2 beauties, give me some help to replenish my condition. Minimum and Lan ZHR looked at each other, and at the same time, threw a big mouthful of milk, all on Hongjun. In a few breaths, he recovered to his peak state again. He had already opened 34 acupoints, which stored a lot of soul power. Therefore, although he was also at level 25, his soul power was comparable to that of a soul master at level 28 or 29. Okay, let them play their own games, and then the 3 of us will play. Hongjun retracted his 6 wings, stretched his muscles, and his soul power was restored to full state again. Did you do it on purpose? Ziyu was a little surprised. In addition to him and his sister, there were only Yan and 2 others on his side, one of whom was injured. The other side has 10 people. As long as he can hold the 2 of us back, even with Yan, it will be difficult to do 3 to 9. After all, they are all great soul masters, and they have not yet caused absolute suppression. What do you think? Hongjun laughed and silently merged the martial god body, allowing the whole body to obtain all-round attribute improvement, and this time he could clearly sense that it was increased by 62%. It seems that every time the soul power is improved and the acupoints are connected, his martial god body fusion will become more and more perfect. It seems that you are very confident. Hulina also sneered. Where did this little fat guy get the courage? It was enough to succeed in the sneak attack once, but now he wants to challenge the 2 of us alone. How do you know if you don't try? Ma Xiaopang laughed, and the dark red soul power surged around his body and began to cover his whole body. A dark red soul clothes like a tights gradually condensed into shape. At the same time, Hulina and Ziyu also completed the martial soul fusion. Yaomei walked out of the red mist, holding a moon blade in hand, like a reaper in the bloody night, wrapped in armor. Both parties rushed out almost at the same time and disappeared on the ring. Soon, the sound of ping-pong collisions was heard on the ring. On the other side, Yan was almost alone against 4. Although he was a little embarrassed, he did not show much decline. Instead, he became more and more courageous and actually relied on brute force to collide with Crass. Why is the gap between people so big? Crass shook his arms. He was obviously a strong attack system, but he was almost beaten. It was too tragic. On the other hand, Ma Xiaopang actually relied on his own strength to force to level 29 players, who were 2 terrible monsters with martial soul fusion skills. It must be said that after merging into a demon, the bonus is extremely terrible. Hongjun's condensed flame soul clothes were cut into countless holes. This was when he dodged most of the attacks. If his speed had not been fast enough, he would have been chopped into pieces long ago. Martial arts, powerful Vajra Palm. The powerful Vajra Palm focuses on bursting out and taking the enemy by surprise. Although it is not as long-lasting as the falling leaf palm, its power should not be underestimated. It hits Yaomei's abdomen in an instant. However, Yaomei reacts quickly and blocks the attack with the moon blade. Then, her body rotates continuously, and a red mist quickly spreads around her body. It covers Hongjun's position. Hulina and Ziyu's soul power is still low at this time, so the range covered by the red mist is very limited. They need to grasp the actual situation. Otherwise, once the enemy dodges, they will not be able to use their most proud abilities. Come on, continue. Ma Xiaopang became more and more excited to fight, and no one knew that the dark red evil fire in his eyes became deeper and deeper, and he actually rushed into the red mist on his own initiative. Humph, since you are looking for death, don't blame me. Yaomei, holding the moon blade in her hand, also rushed into the red mist. In there, it is his real home ground, where his strength can be multiplied. This little guy is a bit reckless. Ghost Douluo was stunned. In his opinion, even if he was trapped in the red fog at the same level, he would basically lose. Just wait and see, you will know later. Xiang Qishan said with a forced calmness, but in fact he was very panicked. Damn Hongjun, I told you specifically to avoid the red fog, but you actually took the initiative to break in. What a pighead. If it weren't for the competition at this time, I would have to let you understand why the flowers are so red. On the ring, the battle continued, and Yan couldn't resist it. Although he had a level 29 soul power, he was besieged by several people in succession, and the opponent also had a healing system to help him in the back, so it was only a matter of time before he was defeated. On the ring, the red fog had not dissipated, and at this time, only Yan was left on the ring. Jechun Feng and Kinnan were knocked off the ring. Yan Qiang gritted his teeth and used his first soul skill. The movements of the people close to him froze, and he rushed out instantly, rushing towards Zhu Minimum and Lan Zhi in the back. If the back row is not dealt with, even if Ziyu and Hulina come out, it will be difficult to win the final victory after the red fog dissipates, and Ziyu and Hulina were already injured. Second soul skill, Void Dragon Claw. The Flame Lord was like a giant, and with his giant palm, he knocked Zhu Minimum out of the ring. Boom. At the same time, there was finally a discovery in the red fog. A figure flew out, and it turned out to be Ma Xiaopang. At this time, the dark red soul clothes around him had been completely forced, his clothes were torn, and his arms were still stained with blood. Chapter 85 End. No, hurry up and protect Lanzi. As a sensitive attacker, Werner rushed to Yan's front, and kicked him in the waist and abdomen, kicking him out. Ma Xiaopang also grabbed the edge of the ring, and climbed up dangerously. He lay on the ring, gasping for breath. The red mist dissipated, and Hulina and Ziyu also withdrew from the demon state, kneeling there and breathing. Why can you see it? Hulina raised her head, wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, her eyes full of disbelief. Ziyu also raised her head in horror and asked strangely, impossible, in our field, your vision will be disturbed, and your perception will be deprived. Even the most sensitive hearing will be useless. How did you fight back? Hongjun glanced at the two of them lightly and ignored them. Instead, he turned his head and asked with a grin, Lanzi, do you still have any strength left? Hurry up and give me some milk. It hurts so much. Yeah. Yu Minimum was knocked off the ring, and her soul power was almost gone. She forced Hongjun to treat it for a while, and then she could only sit on the ground powerlessly. Hongjun slowly stood up, stretched out his arms, and shouted, brother is unusually strong and full of energy. Pa. Werner blushed, spit fiercely, and continued to rush towards Yan without looking back. The key now is to get rid of Yan. Hulina and Ziyu obviously have no fighting power. As long as they get rid of Yan, their fight will end with victory. The red mist of Nana and Ziyu, the two siblings, was something I couldn't even see through. I didn't expect that it would be broken by a little fat guy. Ghost Douluo also exclaimed in shock. Hulina was a genius favored by Pope Bibidang, and was personally accepted as a disciple. I didn't expect that she would be defeated by someone with lower soul power than her today. This blow must be very big. Xiang Kishan was also surprised and said, I just wanted to put some pressure on these little guys. I didn't think I could win. I didn't expect that they would give us a big reversal today. Well, although today's game was unexpected, it also exposed a lot of problems. I neglected the cooperation of the team. Nana and the others were a little too proud. Ghost Douluo thought deeply. It seems that his teaching problems are really not small. He ignored many problems. The soul power of the people still on the field is almost gone. If they want to fight again, they can only choose hand-to-hand combat. And this is excellent news for Hongjun. Hand-to-hand combat. Who can beat me? Ma Xiaopang stared at the curvy Hulina and said proudly in his heart, I'm not bragging, 1 against 3 is no problem. All of you, get out of the way. I, the captain, will personally deal with the 3 of them. Bathed in the magic of love, Ma Xiaopang was full of energy. There were only 3 disabled people left on the field. Could he not handle it? Humph, little fat man, watch me deal with you. It must be said that Yan was very angry. His legs were shaking, but he still rushed forward fiercely. Werner and Annie looked at each other tacitly, helped Lanzi up, and several people stood in the corner with no intention of intervening. Take I hand, 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds. Boom. A heavy collision sounded, and Yan was thrown to the ground. Martial arts, Iron Mountain Lean. Ziyu was knocked away. Hulina took the opportunity to use charm on Hongjun. But in the blink of an eye, the small figure disappeared. Be careful, Hongjun had come to Hulina's back with his phantom steps. When he chopped her neck with one hand knife, he tapped her waist with the other hand repeatedly, causing Hulina's body to soften in an instant, and she was about to fall backwards. However, Hongjun caught her gently and did not forget to touch her face, saying with a lewd smile, be careful, Nana, it will hurt if you fall down. Hulina blushed and wanted to struggle, but Ma Xiaopang hugged her waist. While struggling, she seemed to be getting into his arms. Little fatty, take your claws away. Yan struggled to stand up and wanted to rush over. Okay, we lost this game, let her go. Ghost Douluo suddenly appeared on the ring, waved his hand, and lifted Hulina up. Oh, Ghost Douluo, you have spoken, so I will definitely listen. Ma Xiaopang consciously joined his teammates, stood there obediently, and put his right hand on Annie's shoulder. However, what he got was a roll of eyes from Annie. Did you put your hand in the wrong place? That I'm too tired, just help me, Annie. Marzianapang pretended to be pitiful, with a painful look on his face, and his other hand was also on Annie's shoulder. Ouch, my stomach. Annie didn't give him face, and directly hit Marzianapang with an elbow, hitting his back and screaming in pain. You are so cruel, Annie, I'm your captain. Annie sneered disdainfully, is it so easy to take advantage of my tofu? Now you know, you are so young, and you have so many tricks in a day, you deserve to be beaten. Werner also laughed at the side. Okay, you little guys, stop making trouble here. Bear Demon Douluo also descended to the ring, checked the injuries of the other people, and after confirming that nothing was wrong, he threw it to Kinnan and others to carry. Well, you did well this time. I'll pay for lunch tonight. You can go wherever you want to eat, or whatever you want. I'll take you there. Xiang Kishan was in a good mood at this time. He never expected that the freshman team he led could actually defeat the seed team known as the Golden Generation of the Spirit Hall, and the weak defeated the strong. Yeah, that's great. I'm going to eat at Cheyenne Pavilion. Marzianapang cheered. The hotel known as the First Old Brand in the Spirit City was so expensive that it was unimaginable. Someone was treating us today. It was so great. Xiang Kishan's mouth twitched, his hands behind his back, and he smiled and said, then let's go. Today, I, the mentor, am in a good mood, so I'll treat you. Marzianapang silently put his left hand on Anna's shoulder, welcoming Anna's murderous gaze. However, seeing that Marzianapang's face was indeed a little pale, he still took back his outstretched hand, and did not open his salty pig hand. Wait. However, at this moment, Yan behind him pushed away the support of his teammates, gritted his teeth and shouted, Hongjun, right? I'll remember you. You're lucky this time. Come again next time, and see how I'll deal with you. He has always been proud, but today he was played like a monkey. Next time. Marzianapang laughed, what are you thinking about? Why should I compete with you? A defeated general. You. Not to mention Yan, even Ziyu, who has always had a good temper, felt angry and wanted to shave him. Do you have the guts to say it again? What? Did I say it wrong? Marzianapang pointed at them, then pointed at his own side and said, look at how you are injured, and then look at us. The gap in soul power, what is the golden generation? It seems to be a bit embarrassing. Werner and others were speechless, and they won the fight. As the saying goes, forgive others when you can. Why doesn't this little fat guy understand? Still provoking trouble, aren't you maliciously trying to attract hatred? Question mark. Bear Demon, I think these little guys are quite energetic. How about we set some rules? Ghost Douluo waved his hand, signaling Yan and the others to be quiet. Rules? What rules? Tell me. Bear Demon Douluo turned around and said. Chapter 86 New Practice. Ghost Douluo walked forward slowly, patted Yan's head, and said with a smile, let's hold a duel every month in the future, which will also help these little guys improve their motivation to practice. Xiang Douluo hesitated. He originally had his own plan. If he had a duel every 3 months, he would have to bring people back once a month. The time seems a bit too short. 3 months. Before Xiang Douluo finished speaking, Marzianapang stood up and stretched out 3 fingers to shake there. At most once every 3 months. We also have things to do, but we don't have so much free time to play around with you. You. Hulina and others gritted their teeth. Facing Marzianapang's repeated ridicule, even her good temper could not stand it, and she wanted to skin this little fat man alive. I suggest that we can add a few one-on-one matches, and each opponent will send 5 people to have a single player duel. Yan also gritted his teeth and made a suggestion. Then, Xiang Douluo was about to speak, but was interrupted again. Okay, that's no problem, it's decided. Marzianapang made an okay gesture, then smiled and winked at Ulina. I'll meet your requirements. Bang. Marzianapang was hit in the face by a huge palm and flew out with a clang. In the Cheyenne Pavilion restaurant, seeing that the person who walked in was actually a titled Douluo, the lobby manager hurried forward to greet him and enthusiastically arranged a private room. Give me a portion of all your special dishes here, quickly. Okay. As soon as Xiang Douluo said this, the lobby manager went to arrange it. Since he can make such a big hotel in Wuhan City, it is not an exaggeration to call him a smart person. Basically, all the famous people are remembered in his mind. After all, some people cannot be offended, especially in Wuhan City, where soul masters gather. You have to be careful. Ma Xiaopang, you look really good. Looking at the red palm print on Hongjun's face, Verna covered her mouth and laughed secretly. What's so funny? This style is so fashionable. Look, the instructor is willing to give you one. I'm the only one who is unique and deserves this privilege. Hongjun raised his face and showed off the glorious achievements on his face, causing his teammates to laugh ridiculously. Does it hurt? Annie asked, covering her mouth. How could it hurt? Ma Xiaopang slapped the table, and a slender hand next to him reached out silently. Ouch. What are you doing? Lancy quickly retracted her hand and stuck out her tongue embarrassedly. Sorry, Captain, I just saw that your face was so red, and I couldn't help it. As she said that, Lancy reached out her hand again and pinched Ma Xiaopang's face, which was swollen like a pig's head. Ah, you stinky woman, you are too much. A pig-killing scream rang out in the private room. It wasn't that Ma Xiaopang wanted to disperse the slap marks on his face, but Daluo's palm was accompanied by soul power. After this soul power was integrated into the flesh, although it did not cause any harm to him, it left a big slap mark on his face. No matter how Ma Xiaopang tried, the marks on his face could not be dispersed. Even Lan Zhi and U Minimum, two healing soul masters, had no way to do it. In desperation, he had to beg Xiang Qishan, the shameless old man, in a low voice. However, Daluo said that this was a test for Ma Xiaopang. There are many ways to use soul power. If you can disperse the red palm marks on your face with your own skills, then your control over soul power will definitely be greatly improved. Fuck, a big improvement. Am I shameless? All the way, Ma Xiaopang covered his face. Even if he was thick-skinned, he was embarrassed to walk around the street with a slap mark on his head. However, Daluo just ignored him. No matter how much Ma Xiaopang asked, he was indifferent. You kids stole my lines, and I can't deal with you? Daluo sat upright in the first seat, looking straight ahead, but he was laughing in his heart. You disrespect the elderly, this is a lesson. After a meal, the sad Ma Xiaopang could only turn his grief into appetite and eat like crazy. Xiang Qishan couldn't help but twitch his eyelids. How could this thing be eaten? One dish after another was cleared, the good parts were solved, and all the unpalatable ones were left on the plate. Okay, little guys, stop eating. Since you are all here, I will tell you about the next practice task, so that you can be prepared. Daluo coughed twice, patted the corner of the table, and interrupted the people who were feasting, especially a fat man with a swollen face who was wolfing down. Ahem, stop. Daluo slapped Ma Xiaopang on the forehead, knocking out all the meat in his mouth. You said mentor, I'm listening. Ma Xiaopang quickly sat up straight. Now that you are all great soul masters, the progress of cultivation also needs to be accelerated. I decided to take you out for some training. Go out for training? Ma Xiaopang was surprised and said strangely, we are only in our 20s. Isn't it too early to go out for training? Daluo's eyes became fierce, and he was about to slap him, but Ma Xiaopang ran away very fast. Move. He pushed him with his butt, making Annie roll her eyes in anger, and finally half of the chair was occupied. Xiang Qishan put down his hand and continued, I have already thought about this training. Go to Jengxin City for training. Jengxin City? Kinnan was also a little puzzled and curious. Jengxin City is the territory of those blacksmiths. It may be the best choice for making weapons, but going there for training is a bit. Yes, and it is close to the imperial city of the Xiandao Empire, and the rules are also very strict. Annie also interrupted. Bear Demon Douluo said unhappily, what do you little guys know? As a soul master, are you afraid of this little difficulty? Do you know where the youngest titled Douluo on the continent comes from? It's the Weapon Soul Haoshan sect. Even our spirit hall is ashamed of their use of soul power. Bear Demon Douluo was patient for once and explained in a kind way to this group of jumpy kids. Don't underestimate the job of blacksmithing. Although those blacksmiths are not strong, they are very skilled in the use of soul power. This training lasts for 1 year, and the goal is very simple, which is to practice the control of soul power. Among your group, only Hongjun pays attention to the fine control of soul power, but there is still room for improvement. You know, in the early stage when your soul power is low, you can still use your soul power carefully, but as your realm improves, and your soul power continues to improve, you will also ignore some important things. Well, what the instructor said makes sense. This time, Pang agreed for once. The reason why I use soul power more subtly is that I have taken some shortcuts. Under normal circumstances, my control of soul power is also very superficial. Fang Ying listened attentively to the explanations of Douluo Dalu and Hongjun. The more she listened, the brighter her eyes became. She felt that she seemed to have found the gap. Happy New Year everyone. Chapter 87 Heading to Junction City. After eating and drinking, everyone went back to their own homes and mothers, and went back to pack their bags. After returning home, Pang first told teacher Shire about the plan. After learning that this practice would be led by Kishan, the titled Douluo, Shire readily agreed. In her opinion, there is nothing safer than practicing with the titled Douluo accompanying you. You are leaving again, Pang. Masayaxio cried and pouted angrily. You haven't even gone out to play with me, sister. There are so many delicious foods on the street that I haven't eaten yet. Hey, you are going to cry. Pang touched Masayaxio's hair with a smile. Who said I was going to cry? I won't cry. Masayaxio slapped Pang's hand away, her eyes wide open. Okay, don't cry, don't cry. My elder sister is the most sensible and can take care of her younger brother. Why would you cry? That's right. Remember to go early and come back early. Without your sister to take care of you, I don't know how messy you would be. After Masayaxio finished speaking, she ran into the room, and no one knew where she went. Father and Mother Ma also looked pale. They thought that, after leaving their hometown and coming here, they could live a comfortable life and live with their son and daughter. Who would have thought that just after the new year, their little son would go out to gain experience. And he would be out for a whole year, and no one knew when he would come back. Zyajin, be sure to pay attention to safety when you go out. After more than a dozen breaths, the last thing Pang waited for was this sentence. Mother Ma turned around and went into his room and started to pack his clothes. Pang said with a smile, Dad and Mom, what are you doing? You're making it seem like a life and death separation. I'm just going out to gain experience. This time I'm accompanied by a titled Douluo. I'm afraid there are few people in the whole continent who can hurt us. Besides, I should come back a few times halfway. Bah, what life and death separation? Children speak without restraint. My kid will definitely be safe when he goes out. Dad Ma quickly covered Pang's mouth, fearing that the kid would say something nonsense again. Okay, then I won't say anything, okay? Pang pushed Dad Ma's hand away. For him, who is actually close to a 40-year-old soul, this feeling is very strange, but inexplicably warm, which makes him unconsciously think of his childhood full of sorrow. At night, Pang finally understood what it meant, that a loving mother's hand thread can make clothes for her wandering son. He was only away for a year, but he had a lot of clothes and shoes, as well as a lot of snacks specially prepared by Masayaxio. He felt that he was going to separate. For some reason, Shire also got involved, and specially prepared a tent and a set of pots and pans. ? This is not a picnic, teacher. When he learned who made these things, Pang looked at Shire with a strange look. Shire glared back at him and explained, what are you looking at? Teacher knows that you have a 30 cubic meter space soul guide. It's a waste not to install it. There's no harm in bringing it. Maybe it will be useful on the road. Okay. Pang was speechless for a while, but he still packed all the junk in. He couldn't let them down, right? The next morning, at 7 o'clock in the morning, a group of 10 people gathered at the gate of Wuhan City on time. However, when they saw that Pang and Annie came empty-handed, they were jealous. Their large and small bags looked like they were going on a long journey. Especially the carriage prepared not far away, which was also loaded with a lot of things. Do you also have a space soul guide? Ma Xiaopang asked Annie curiously. Annie rolled her eyes and said disdainfully, why, you are the only one who can have a soul guide, but I can't. Okay, there will be no problem. You are rich and beautiful, okay. I admit defeat. Ma Xiaopang smiled and patted the backpacks of the remaining 8 teammates and commented solemnly, not bad, not bad. They are all good things. Everyone, carry them well. This time we will practice with heavy loads. Ma Xiaopang, you are asking for a beating, aren't you? Verna glared at him. Humph, this time Hongjun is right, and I agree with his proposal. However, at this moment, Bear Demon Douluo suddenly descended, and his eyes swept around, causing those who were hiding everywhere and wanted to see him off to shudder. This is cultivation, not tourism. Blindly caring will only backfire and will not achieve the effect of cultivation at all. Xiangmo Douluo secretly circulated his soul power and shouted, now, withdraw all your carriages. Then he turned his eyes and stared at Je Chunfeng and others and said, now I give you half an hour, and you are only allowed to bring some useful things. You can choose to leave them with Hongjun or Annie, but you can't lose your backpacks and replace them all with stones. Assistant Spirit Masters, each person's backpack must reach 50 kilograms, and the rest of the people must have a backpack of 100 kilograms. As an elder of the Spirit Hall, Xiangmo Douluo has long accumulated a lot of prestige, and his spirit is the Blood Demon Bear, which is an extremely ferocious spirit. As the saying goes, spirit affects personality. If it weren't for the fact that he gradually calmed down his temper after years of self-cultivation, I'm afraid Bibi Dong wouldn't dare to let him be the mentor of these children. This mentor isn't 50 kilograms a bit too heavy for Ansi and you minimum? Even though he saw Xiangmo Douluo's dissatisfaction at this time, Ma Xiaopang couldn't help but remind him. HMPH. Xiangmo Douluo snorted coldly, shocking everyone's face. Did I not allow you to use soul power? Everyone has. Yes. Ma Xiaopang and others immediately lined up. You are limited to finishing the collection within half an hour, otherwise get out. After Xiangmo Douluo finished speaking, his body and mind turned into a ball of black mist and disappeared on the spot. In order to have a beginning and an end, it is better to put it on the shelf and finish it as soon as possible. After all, I don't want to give up halfway. Je Chunfeng took a deep breath and said with lingering fear, the instructor just now was so scary, I felt that I would die at any time. Yes, that momentum was simply hard to breathe. Zhang Fei also wiped the sweat from his forehead and felt a palpitation. Don't say anything, hurry up and pack up, don't delay there. Ma Xiaopang also reminded with a serious face. He was under the greatest pressure just now, especially the look in Xiang Qishan's eyes, which made his soul tremble. Finally, a group of people packed up their necessary items and handed them over to Hongjun and Annie for safekeeping. After all, they both had space soul guides, and the internal space seemed to be quite large. Everyone, the hard training begins. Ma Xiaopang and Annie, who originally came empty-handed, now also carried large bags full of stones. The carriages were also removed. This time, they would walk to the destination. As an auxiliary control soul master, Fang Ying originally only needed to carry 50 kilograms, but she was wearing a purple fairy skirt, so she had to carry 100 kilograms anyway. She was the first to step out of the gate of Wuhan City. It's on the shelves, the word count is almost there. I feel that this book has been interrupted for many times in the middle, and I feel that the inspiration has been cut off a lot. The writing style has changed a bit. In addition, I hope that friends who are still reading this book can put forward any opinions. Whether good or bad, the editor will seriously consider them. Chapter 88 Barbecue Party. My old waist. It's about to break. Class threw his backpack weakly, and the messy stones rolled down instantly, almost hitting Je Chunfeng's face. Fuck, what are you doing? You want to kill me? Je Chunfeng stamped his feet in anger and slapped the rolling stones away. It happened to hit a rabbit. The poor little rabbit cried a few times and died completely. Good stuff. Ma Xiaopang picked up the dead rabbit and hung it with other prey. The silver dragon spear, which was a full 1.5 meters long, was only half a meter exposed at this time, and it was hung with all kinds of game. We'll have something to eat tonight. Let's have a barbecue party. I say Pang, can you stop being so disgusting and picking up any corpse? Verna waved her hand in disgust and stepped back 5 or 6 steps, fearing to get too close to this disgusting guy. 3 days have passed since they set out from Wuhan City. For the first 3 days, they all ate compressed dry food. Although it was enough to fill them up, it was bland and tasteless, and they had no appetite. Last night, Pang roasted a sparrow, which barely satisfied his appetite, but it didn't fill him up at all. He felt uneasy and unhappy. This morning, Pang held the silver dragon spear in his hand and walked in the predetermined direction while watching the animals around him. Because it was an official road, there were often carriages passing by, so there were few wild beasts. If Pang hadn't suggested taking a shortcut and climbing over a mountain forest, he wouldn't have had such a rich harvest. This thing is called a badger pig. Don't be fooled by its strange appearance, but it tastes good. And the meat is delicate, 100 times better than your compressed food. Hongjun took the prey with one hand and released the flame with the other hand. He carefully controlled the intensity of the flame, only burning their fur, but not damaging the meat inside. Wow, it smells so good. Pang deliberately picked up the roasted flamingo, sniffed it intoxicatedly at the tip of his nose, and then stretched it out to Verna and others, causing Verna to roll her eyes. Captain, I don't care about hygiene. Anyway, I won't get sick if I eat something unclean. Zhang Fei scratched his head carelessly, looked at the compressed food in his hand, and immediately felt disgusted, and threw it aside. This thing is really tasteless. You still know the goods. Here, the captain will give you a piece for free. Pang tore off a leg of the flamingo and threw it to Zhang Fei, and he began to feast on it. Soon, the whole flamingo was devoured by the two of them. Great. Zhang Fei touched his stomach comfortably and looked at Pang again with some unsatisfied feeling. Captain, I'll help you hunt tomorrow. Look at the remaining ones. Come and sit down. There's plenty of meat today, so you can have as much as you want. Class silently moved his buttocks. Feng and Kinnan looked at each other and walked to Pang and sat down tacitly. You guys have no perseverance at all. If you get diarrhea tomorrow, don't blame me for not reminding you then. Verna glanced at the fickle men angrily and threw a few more firewood into the fire, which burned more vigorously. However, Fang Ying stood up silently and sat on the right side of Pang, helping to grease the badger pig. Fang Ying, you. Verna was so angry that she bit off the compressed biscuits and chewed them in big mouthfuls. As the badger pork was gradually roasted golden, Pang reached into the storage bag and took out rows of bottles and jars filled with Seoul condiments. In an instant, the unique aroma of barbecue wafted, and the fragrance was overflowing, making people unable to help but bite their tongues. Soon, Annie and Lansy could not help themselves and walked to the small barbecue grill, staring at the roasted pig above the fire. Eat, eat, eat randomly. I'll see what you guys will do tomorrow. There were 10 people, but only 2 fires. One fire was full of people, and the other had only 1 person. Verna threw the compressed food in her hand and went into her tent. Out of sight, out of mind. I'll close the tent. In addition to the badger pig and flamingo, Pang's barbecue also included a rabbit, 2 lost black snakes, and a lost mutant frog, which was as big as an adult's head. Pang, who was familiar with all kinds of strange stories and food magazines, was very knowledgeable about anatomy. This mutant frog, which belonged to a soul beast, had a poison sac in its mouth. It needed to be cut open from its head first, then cut all the way to the back, and finally pick it up from the backbone to successfully remove the poison sac. Otherwise, once the poison sac was broken, the toxins would instantly flow throughout the body, making the entire frog meat inedible. It's delicious. This melt in the mouth feeling hits the depths of the taste buds. Feng closed his eyes in enjoyment and carefully tore off the snake meat. And this snake meat is so crispy, spicy, and numb, and there is no mountain taste in my mouth. This is really so refreshing. Although there was also the torture of compressed food in the past few days, it was more the simple seasoning ratio and the control of the barbecue temperature that completely forced out the taste of the meat. If it tastes good, eat more. Don't be polite. As the captain, I have no other benefits, just eat as much as I want. He had studied food in his previous life, and he had already reached the subtle level of controlling the ratio of various seasonings and the temperature of meat. Especially now that he can control the fire, it is even more refined. The taste of the roasted meat is simply too good. You are so noisy, I'm going to sleep. You guys should not be so loud when eating. Werner almost rushed out in anger and beat people. It's so cool, I wish we could get another beer. The night was bright, the moonlight and the stars shone together, and the whole earth seemed like midsummer. However, the white snow covered the entire mountain forest, and the branches of the trees were crushed down. In the snowy forest, the smoke was curling, the fire was flickering, and a group of young men and women were feasting, enjoying the happiness that did not belong to this forest. Carrying heavy loads every day, and having to reach Junction City within half a month. This made everyone nervous all day long, and they did not dare to slow down at all, fearing that they would be punished for not catching up. However, the fatigue after nightfall made it impossible to continue moving forward, and it was difficult to tell the direction at night, so they could only choose to rest in place, and continue to set off early the next morning. The next day, just after dawn, Annie and others climbed out of the tent, carrying stones and setting off. Let's go. Along the way, everyone who tasted the sweetness began to hunt for delicacies encountered along the way, and at night Hongjun performed barbecue skills. In this way, every night, a group of men and women held a bonfire party, and the smell of barbecue wafted in the air. Even the hungry wolves, that were attracted by the aroma, could not escape the fate of being slaughtered. Werner persisted for 5 days along the way, and finally she couldn't help it, and joined their barbecue party. These damn bastards, don't they know that I'm protecting them in secret? On the branch of a big tree, stood a sturdy figure, who was the Douluo Dalu, who was hiding in the dark and observing. Looking at the raging flames and the smell of barbecue, Kishin clenched his fists again and again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, New Practice. The group hurried, and finally arrived at Junction City, known as the Metal City, on the evening of the 15th day. The largest organization in Junction City is the Blacksmith Association, where a group of blacksmiths who are proficient in iron smelting technology live. Although their soul power is not strong, their wealth is beyond imagination. The huge Junction City seems to be smelted from steel alloys, and its splendor and brilliance seem to be surpassing that of Wuhan City. Finally, we are here. I'm so tired. Jechun Feng sat on the ground and threw the bag full of stones aside. With the setting sun, the group of 10 people walked into this metal city. As soon as they walked in, a wave of heat hit them. No way, no one is in charge. Zhang Fei stared at the blacksmith shop next to him in surprise. After calculating the distance, he found that it was only a dozen meters away from the gate, and the iron shed was even extended to the road. Yu Minimum rolled her eyes at her and said, "This is the headquarters of the Blacksmith Association. What else can we do if we don't make iron?" "That's right. This is the craft that they do. The more famous they are, the better." Fang Ying also sighed in a rare way. Her martial spirit is the cold iron chain, which makes her feel an inexplicable familiarity with this metal city. "Okay, everyone, you are all tired after a day. Let's find a hotel quickly, eat and have a comfortable sleep, and prepare for tomorrow's special training." As the captain, Ma Xiaopang walked in the front without hesitation, even though he was the shortest one. At the same time, Kishin also followed into Junction City. He didn't show his head along the way. Even if he encountered danger, he let these little ghosts play freely and strictly played the role of a bystander. Junction City. I haven't been here for decades. As he said that, he walked towards the Blacksmith Association in the center. He had made a big fuss here in the past, making the blacksmiths in the Blacksmith Association embarrassed. This is it. It looks pretty good. Ma Xiaopang pointed to a hotel that was neither big nor small and said. Annie shook her head and said, "It doesn't look very good. Why don't we change one? Rich people don't know how to save money. Why do they look for such a good hotel?" Do they think they have too many gold coins in their pockets? Ma Xiaopang rolled his eyes at her and walked in directly. However, in less than half a minute, he walked out. Let's change places. I think Miss Annie is right. What's going on inside? Verna couldn't help asking curiously. Well, why don't you go in and take a look yourself? Verna walked in curiously and then walked out with a red face. These people are really shameless. Jie Chunfeng looked inside with a strange look on his face, then silently memorized the address and followed everyone to find a new hotel. What kind of a hell of a place is this? There's even a blacksmith furnace in the hotel. Class complained dissatisfiedly. It's already pretty good. Didn't you see the hotel just now? The smell inside. Verna fanned her nose with lingering fear. At this time, Ma Xiaopang and Annie came down from upstairs. Seeing Annie's disgusted expression, she was a little disappointed. However, Ma Xiaopang said, this is it. There are many people, so we only need to open 2 rooms. Let's squeeze in first. If there is anything, we can talk about it tomorrow. Until now, they haven't eaten yet. Annie also nodded. Be content. It's much better than the previous ones. Okay. In the end, the group of 10 people stayed there. After all, they were too tired, and they hadn't taken a shower for more than 10 days. Especially for several girls, the sticky feeling all over their bodies was simply unbearable for them. Late at night, several loud noises suddenly came from the huge Jengxin city, and even Hongjun, Lanzi and others were woken up. However, the sound came and went quickly. It only sounded 5 times before it completely disappeared. Everyone waited for nearly half an hour and went to sleep again after confirming that nothing strange had happened. The next morning, they learned that someone had broken into the Blacksmith Association headquarters last night and alarmed the elders on duty. However, the final result was that several elders were beaten up and the person left calmly. Could it be that our mentor did it? Jie Chunfeng lowered his head and said quietly. Ma Xiaopang said, it is very likely that only a titled Douluo level strongman could break in so easily. However, before they could finish their breakfast, Bear Demon Douluo suddenly appeared in front of him. Hurry up, you are so slow to eat. Come out after you finish everything. I will arrange the next practice opportunity for you. That mentor, did you do what happened last night? Ma Xiaopang couldn't help but asked carefully. Xiangmo Douluo snorted coldly, just those guys, they are not enough for me to beat with one hand. Well, it was really this old guy who did it. After hearing these conversations, the other people in the hotel were all silent, neither walking nor sitting. All of them lowered their heads and ate quickly, as if someone was trying to snatch food from them. After quickly finishing breakfast, a group of 10 people came to the door neatly and stood side by side. Very good. First of all, congratulations, you have successfully completed the first training task, which is very good. Xiangmo Douluo rarely praised a few words, then his face was calm and continued. Next, you will practice here for 3 months. Although the next training task is not difficult, you 10 people must all separate and complete your own training tasks. If you fail to complete it after 3 months, I think you don't want to know what the punishment will be. I promise to complete the task. Ma Xiaopang took the lead in expressing his attitude, and the remaining 9 people followed suit. Okay, don't be so nervous. The task is actually very simple. In these 3 months, the 10 of you will each join a blacksmith guild, and the only purpose is to forge iron. Xiang Qishan said in a serious tone. The blacksmiths in the Blacksmith Association are divided into 10 levels. I won't make it difficult for you. In addition to increasing your soul power level by 1 level within 3 months, you must also register as a blacksmith apprentice. And to become a blacksmith apprentice, you need to report your level to the Blacksmith Association and complete the smelting assessment within the specified time. Well, it really is blacksmithing. Ma Xiaopang thought about it on the way here. Coming to the Metal City to practice, isn't that all about blacksmithing? I have already arranged the guild and the master for you. Next, follow me. I will take you to your respective teachers. Just like that, a group of people, led by Xiang Qishan, each joined just like that. After passing a blacksmith guild, they separated for a short time. Chapter 90. Blacksmithing is a technical job. Although they each joined a guild, it seems that accommodation is not provided. They still need to find a place to stay every night. This is it, brat, hurry in. Someone will come to treat you well. Hongjun glanced at the strange look in Douluo's eyes and asked with a sob, teacher, why do I feel that your expression has some bad intentions? Well, Douluo's eyes became fierce and he opened his big hands and shouted, as the captain, in addition to becoming an apprentice, your soul power level must be increased by 2 levels. Otherwise don't blame me for being rude. A big slap was printed on Ma Xiaopang's face, and the red palm print that had been finally erased was attached to his face again. With a clang, Ma Xiaopang knocked the door open like a bowl and flew in. Where did you come from, kid, and dared to trespass into the Iron King Guild? Liu Dazhuang, who was forging iron, turned around suddenly, grabbed Ma Xiaopang who was flying over with his arms as thick as a bucket, and lifted him up in his hands. Well, I'm really sorry, I'm here to be your apprentice. My name is Hongjun. Ma Xiaopang twisted his body, but found that it was of little use, so he had to introduce himself. Are you Hongjun? The bearded uncle next to him stopped his work and looked at him in surprise. Ma Xiaopang nodded and said, yes, it's me. Can you please ask this big brother to put me down? The uncle waved his hand and said, okay, Dazhuang, let him go. This brat will learn blacksmithing from us in the future. Don't pinch his little arms and legs. Okay. Liu Dazhuang let go of his hand, and Ma Xiaopang just tidied up his clothes, stood there straight, and began to look at the things around him. At the top of the hall, there was a crooked sign with very sloppy handwriting. It seemed to be hand-carved. You could vaguely see the big words, Iron King Guild. Boy, take it. Jemu put down the iron tweezers and hammer in his hand, wiped the sweat on his hands, grabbed the blacksmith apron beside him, and threw it to Hongjun. Your task for these 3 days is very simple, just blacksmithing. Jemu is the president of the Iron King Guild. Although the name of their guild sounds loud, there are actually not many people, and the guild is just a simple small shop, and it survives in some unknown corner. Just blacksmithing? Hongjun's first reaction was that he thought he had heard it wrong. Shouldn't it be doing odd jobs? Just like what is written on TV and in novels. If you want to learn technology, you must first learn to do odd jobs, such as cleaning the yard, washing clothes and cooking. A lot of dirty and tiring work. Why, you want to start working right away, before you even learn the most basic blacksmithing. Galmud looked at him with a strange look. No, grandpa, you're kidding. Ma Xiaopang waved his hands, then quickly put on his clothes, found a stove in the corner, and began to study. Grandpa. Galmud's mouth twitched. Although he looked unshaven, he didn't like to trim his edges when he was blacksmithing, and looked like an old uncle. But in fact, he was only 46 years old. He accepted being called an uncle, so why did he become an old grandfather here? Ma Xiaopang, who was standing aside, had already started to study. Looking at the blazing fire in the furnace, Ma Xiaopang tried to pick up a piece of pig iron and put it into the fire, then stared at the burning flame carefully and began to observe the changes in the flame and pig iron. For this experience was something Hongjun had never experienced in his previous life. Although it was very boring, it was very novel. Watching the iron gradually turning red under the burning flame, Ma Xiaopang also tried to control the flame in the furnace to make it better wrap around the iron and extract its impurities from all angles. My martial soul is fire, and my body has a strong resistance to fire. If I use my own flame to burn myself, will it also burn out the impurities in my body like this piece of pig iron? Hongjun stared at the pig iron in the furnace, his eyes gradually brightening. My martial soul is originally a mutant martial soul. Because the flame is too strong, the evil fire is often difficult to suppress, causing me to lose my mind in battle. But from another perspective, is it possible that it is because my body is poor and my own fire attribute martial soul wants to forge the impurities in the host body, thereby enhancing the strength of the body? Thinking of this, he carefully recalled the several times when the evil fire surged. Although each surge of the evil fire made him very uncomfortable, when the evil fire was suppressed, the body would be much more relaxed, and the cultivation of soul power would also be much smoother. Thinking of it, Ma Xiaopang immediately closed his eyes and carefully felt the surge of the flame in his body. However, just at the beginning, Hongjun couldn't bear it. As the flames were forced out from the inside to the outside, he felt that his whole body was about to burn. In an instant, beads of sweat the size of soybeans appeared on his forehead, and the clothes on his back began to be soaked. What's wrong with this kid? How long have you been standing next to the stove? Can't stand it? Liu Dazayan turned his head inadvertently and saw Ma Xiaopang's strange expression. The old man from Galmad also turned around curiously, and when he saw Ma Xiaopang's strange look, he looked very unhappy. He left because of his connections. Even if he has poor talent, I can tolerate it. At most, I can just arrange something for him to do. But he is so weak, and still wants to learn blacksmithing. Aren't you afraid that he will be beaten to death? Galmad couldn't help but sighed. Although blacksmithing is a technical job, basic physical fitness is still required. With the physical fitness of this little guy, I'm afraid he will be almost useless if he persists for a day. Forget it, let's move him to another place. Galmad was about to walk forward to sneak away, but he was stopped by a voice that was even more burly than him after just a few steps. Don't worry about him, you guys take care of your own things. The person who came was Douluo Dalu. It turned out that he didn't go far, but was hiding in the distance and observing every move in the house. After all, Ma Xiaopang is the soul of this team. His talent and strength are well deserved first, so he naturally became the focus of Xian Kishan. At first, he was a little curious when he saw Hongjun standing there strangely. But when he felt the subtle fluctuation of soul power that was not easy to detect, he jumped over keenly, wanting to see what this brat was doing. However, as the soul power surged and changed, Xian Kishan thought at first that the little guy's evil fire was out of order, but when he felt that the evil fire gradually changed from chaos to regular flow, he understood. This little monster was deliberately drawing out the evil fire in his body. Although he didn't know what Hongjun wanted to do, seeing his expression as a mentor, he decided to help, at least to prevent people from disturbing him, which was a small thing he could do. Chapter 91 Iron Making. It really hurts. Feeling the evil fire in his body running wildly from the beginning to running along the meridians, the pain increased dramatically, but it barely achieved the effect he wanted. Threads of impurities were discharged through the sweat glands. Every time the evil fire flowed through a place, it would bring out a wisp of impurities. This was like the washing of tendons and marrow in novels. Although it was necessary to endure severe pain, it successfully squeezed out the dirt in the body. No, I have to slow down, otherwise I will faint from the pain. Taking a deep breath, when the soul power was used to suppress the evil fire from the body, Ma Xiaopang sat on the ground, gasping for air. Sure enough, without strong willpower, who can withstand this kind of pain? Feeling the changes in his whole body, Hongjun stretched out his arms and couldn't help but roared, "My young master is a little prince who is unyielding and determined." Xian Kishan, who was about to step forward, twitched his expression and couldn't help but slapped his palm as big as a palm fan, hitting Ma Xiaopang on the back. Oh my god. Poor Ma Xiaopang just stood up and his whole body flew out. Fortunately, this room was patched up and mostly made of steel plates. Ma Xiaopang's head hit it and only left a shallow mark. Jiamu, Liu Dazayan and others stared at the sunken mark on the iron plate in a daze and didn't know what to say for a while. Especially Jiamu, his mind was full of what he had said not long ago. How bad could a little fat man who could use his forehead to dent the iron plate be? Everyone silently returned to the original taste and worked on the iron with peace of mind. Only the selfless passion when working on the iron could make them forget all the troubles in their minds. What happened to you just now, kid? Why did the evil fire suddenly surge and you stood there in meditation? Xian Kishan looked serious. This was a very bad thing for a soul master. You know, during the battle, if the evil fire suddenly surged and caused the body to suddenly stiffen, it would be fatal. If Ma Xiaopang's martial spirit really has this problem, then he has to think about it carefully. After all, if the backbone of a team suddenly has a problem, it will affect the entire team. Ma Xiaopang rubbed his head with a grin, and his eyes were about to cry. What are you doing? Xian Daluo, how did I provoke you, and you attacked me from behind? Zion Kishin was stunned and then laughed angrily. Who told you to yell there? I was just helping you regain your sanity. How can I help you like this? You obviously want to kill me. Ma Zianapang said angrily. Well. Zion Kishin glared and said, I'm asking you, what happened just now? Don't fool me there. Although Ma Zianapang was angry, he still said truthfully, I saw that the fire in the furnace can burn pig iron and remove impurities in it, so I wanted to try whether my evil fire can also burn out the impurities in my body. Oh, did you succeed? Zion Kishin continued to ask. Ma Zianapang said, I feel like it's barely effective. Although it hurts to forge your body with fierce fire, after the fire flows through your body, you really feel much more comfortable. Hongjun even suspected that, if he continued with this method, he might not need to grow up to be an adult, and he should be able to lose weight soon. After all, a lot of impurities have accumulated over the years. It's a bit too reckless. After all, people are not like steel. How can mortal bodies be tempered by fire casually? Zion Kishin taught him in a serious manner, if you don't have a fire attribute martial soul, and you have been suffering from evil fire during this period, I'm afraid you would have burned yourself when you deliberately provoked the fire just now. Not that bad. Ma Zianapang couldn't believe it. He had been burned by the fire so many times, but nothing happened. Douluo Dalu continued, although the soul power flows through the body, without the soul power, you are no different from ordinary people. The strength of the body is only a little stronger than that of ordinary people. After all, the soul power cannot change the essence of the body. It is just a container that can give full play to the soul power. The real strong ones are those soul masters with strong mental power. Mental power. Ma Zianapang fell into deep thought. How could he not know this? Those powerful titled Douluo, which one is not strong in mental power, especially the 3 top level 99 Douluo on the Douluo continent now, whose mental power is even more terrifying. And those who have broken through the 100th level and become god seem to have too strong mental power. Perhaps this is a real qualitative breakthrough. It seems that the plan must be accelerated. After all, he still doesn't know how to practice mental power. Tangsun at least has a technique to practice, and the martial arts he has learned are strong, but it is worse in terms of skills, and cannot improve mental power. After all, it is something similar to the technique of cultivating immortals. Hongjun still remembered that Tangsun, with a soul power of over 80, had achieved the same mental fluctuations as Poseidon on the Sea God Island, and could even communicate with him through telepathy. Perhaps mental power can also be tempered with fire. It must be said that the timid will die of starvation, and the bold will die of gluttony. As soon as Ma Zianapang came up with this idea, he was scared. He didn't dare to try it, because he would burn himself into a fool if he was not careful. When forging iron, you must avoid over-strengthening the steel, which is easy to break. The same is true for people. It is the best way to combine hardness and softness. Although your fire attribute is very strong, it is not suitable for cultivating the body. If you can obtain cold attribute treasures or strange places to assist in cultivation, it should be of great help to improve your body. Zion Kishin continued to analyze. I know, teacher, I will pay attention. Ma Zianapang bowed and continued his training task. Seeing that the pig iron had been burned red inside and out, he followed the way of other blacksmiths, clamped the pig iron out of the furnace, and then picked up the hammer and began to hammer. In the next 3 days, Ma Zianapang's task was to forge iron. Every day he carried a hammer and hammered vigorously. From the small hammer at the beginning, it slowly turned into a big hammer, and a piece of red-hot pig iron was hammered into a discus. During these 3 days, Ma Zianapang continued to try to temper himself with fire, but this time he was much more careful and did not dare to continue to be reckless. In the process of tempering, Ma Zianapang even tried to condense his soul power into a hammer and hit the various parts after the fire tempering. Every time he hit it, it was like a needle piercing into the flesh, and he gritted his teeth in pain, but in the end he survived. Persistence is victory. I want to be the strongest. Since I have come to this world, I can't come in vain. After all, such a unique talent cannot be wasted. I'm at least half a prophet. Chapter 92, Making Cold Weapons. Good boy, I thought you were small, and it would be hard for you to swing the hammer, but who would have thought that you were born with supernatural power? A group of strong men stood behind Jiamu, looking at the discus that was knocked out on the table, and they all gave thumbs up. Little guy, you should be a soul master. You have such strength at such a young age. I'm afraid you must be at level 10 or 10. Not everyone can become a soul master. Even in this metal city, less than 1 in 10 people can become soul masters. Most blacksmiths only rely on skills to forge iron and manufacture. And the so-called genius is even rarer, and most people have never seen it. Well, uncle is really smart. You guessed it all. Hongjun said with a smile, and my martial soul is of fire attribute. It's just right for me to learn casting. Fire attribute martial soul? Everyone's eyes lit up. Can you show it to me? Ma Xiaopang didn't say much, but just opened his hand, and a flame appeared in his palm. Although the small flame seemed weak, it was much hotter than the strong fire in the furnace. So strong. Finally, after receiving the envious eyes of everyone, Ma Xiaopang did not receive any preferential treatment, and continued his ironworking career. However, this time it was not just ironworking, but also included shaping. The shaping step looks simple, but it is a delicate job. Not only must the strength be accurately controlled, but the angle of the knocking must also be carefully controlled. It is a delicate job that requires strength and skills. Ding. Ding. Exclamation mark. In the entire Jengxin city, except for the quietness in the middle of the night, the hammering sound of hammers in the corners of the streets has almost never stopped. And there are many people who come to Jengxin city to buy equipment. There are people coming in and out every day, which can be said to be endless. Ma Xiaopang and the others also gradually adapted to this environment. From the beginning, they relied on brute force to hammer, and then gradually learned how to use soul power to control the strength, and finally skillfully hit the pig iron. To become a formal apprentice, it is easy to say, but it is also difficult to say. That is to independently create a weapon, no matter how big or small, as long as it is tempered and qualified, you can become an apprentice. Now a month has passed, and Ma Xiaopang has not yet completed the requirements, but his soul power has increased by 1 level. I didn't expect the foundry to be so complicated. Seeing that the iron block he had worked hard to temper was accidentally knocked off by himself again, Hongjun wiped his sweat speechlessly and simply walked to the side of Galmad and others, carefully observing their forging process. Ding. Blacksmithing requires strength, but if you want to make a weapon, you must not use brute force. While hammering, Galmad explained to Ma Xiaopang, it is useless to hammer blindly. You must learn to use clever force, just like your fire attribute martial soul. When the soul power increases, the power of the flame will increase, and it may even hurt yourself. When the soul power decreases, although the power will decrease, it will not hurt yourself. Galmad is the only soul master in the Iron King Guild. Although he is old, he is very lazy in practicing soul power. He is just a soul master, and his time is all devoted to blacksmithing. Thank you for your teaching, Kit, I understand. Ma Xiaopang smiled and nodded, and observed carefully for a while, then walked to the side of other blacksmiths to continue observing. At the same time, the other few people were almost doing the same thing. With the support of soul power, even auxiliary soul masters such as Lanzi and Yu Minimum could lift the sledgehammer, which was completely unlike the ladies of that age. Damn, this thing is too complicated. Zhang Fei threw the hammer aside angrily. This was the 18th piece of iron he had broken. Until now, he had not even knocked out a decent shape. It was round and round, and it was an irregular circle. Boom, the hammer beside floated up by itself, and hit Zhang Fei's forehead fiercely, making him scream in pain. What are you doing, old man? The old man beside did not turn his head, but while hitting the iron blank, he used his soul power to control the hammer to hit Zhang Fei 3 or 4 times in a row. You little guys are just young and energetic. Since you chose to learn blacksmithing, the hammer is your weapon and an indispensable part of you. Wouldn't throwing it away be like cutting off your own arm? The old man is Zhang Fei's current master, an old blacksmith and a soul master. He is the only one in the whole blacksmith shop. His daily life fun is blacksmithing. He likes to make iron tools, all of which are hammers, pliers and other various tools for blacksmithing. I know, old man, stop it, your head will crack if you hit it again. Zhang Fei painfully held up his martial spirit defense, but facing this ordinary iron hammer, he was completely unable to defend himself, and his defense was broken in 2 or 3 hits. Did you understand what I just said? The old man continued to ask. I understand. I really understand. Please let me go. I will definitely take good care of my weapon. Zhang Fei was chased and hit by the iron hammer. He was obviously a defensive great spirit master, but he could not stop this small iron hammer at all. Similar things happened in several other blacksmith shops. Although Fang Ying was a girl, she was the most serious. Every day, except for eating and sleeping, she never stopped her hand skills. Her originally white and moist little hands were now slightly dark. Every day under the baking of the fire, the color of her skin gradually changed. However, her willpower did not slacken at all. Since she lost to Ma Xiaopang in a 2-on-1 match with Verna, her self-esteem suffered an unimaginable blow. Take a break, little girl. Forging weapons is not about recklessness. Perseverance alone is useless. It's more about details. The old blacksmith on the side couldn't bear it, so he persuaded her, calm down and feel the changes in the iron embryo after each hammering. Fang Ying took a deep breath, paused the hammer in her hand for a moment, and then continued to hammer. This time, she paused for a moment after each hammering, carefully felt the rhythm of the hammer falling on the iron embryo, and then controlled the force, and continued to hammer. Anna's side was even more interesting. She actually used ice to cool the iron embryo. Although the damaged iron embryo was several times that of others, the effect was several times better than that of others. Even the old master on the side was amazed. With the alternation of cold air and furnace fire, the iron embryo gradually took shape. In this way, time was approaching the 3-month deadline in a blink of an eye, and they would set off back to Wuhan City in a few days. Alas, it's so difficult to get an apprentice certificate. I almost failed at the last step. Fortunately, I was smart and threw it into the furnace, and it was barely cast into shape. Jie Chunfeng fell on the bed tiredly. Just this afternoon, he finally got the apprentice certificate successfully, and his soul power was successfully improved by 1 level. At this time, there was only 1 day left before the assessment deadline. In addition to Ma Xiaopang, Jie Chunfeng was the 9th to complete the assessment. Kinnan on the side asked with concern, Captain, tomorrow is the last day, are you sure? During this period, Ma Xiaopang was not only forging iron in the Iron King Guild, but also practicing soul power. He spent more time trying to temper himself. At this time, he has grown a lot taller than 3 months ago. Although his weight has also increased, his figure looks much thinner, and his round belly has deflated a little. Chapter 93 A Hammer. Come on, Captain. Yeah, it's such a simple thing, you can definitely do it. Jie Chunfeng and others also cheered on the side. Today is the last day. The few people who completed the task, except Fang Ying, the other 8 did not return to the blacksmith guild. In the name of cheering for the captain Hongjun, telling him not to be too nervous, but in fact, everyone's expression was inexplicably weird, with evil smiles on their faces, as if they were waiting for some good news. Ma Xiaopang rolled his eyes speechlessly at everyone, and then strode in. Isn't it just to forge a finished weapon? I knew how to do it a month ago, and you still want to laugh at me? Are you here to take the test too? The 3 examiners of the Blacksmith Association were all shocked. This is clearly a child, and he dares to take the test? Interesting, which one is this? One of the examiners stroked his beard with a smile, and squinted at Ma Hongjun. Little guy, how old are you? Ma Xiaopang said with a smile. 7.5 years old. Uncle, I'm here to take the blacksmith apprentice assessment. You are here to take the apprentice assessment at the age of 7.5. Are you also a spirit master? The examiner continued to ask with a smile. In their opinion, only a spirit master can take the blacksmith apprentice assessment at the age of 7. Otherwise, ordinary children can't swing that big hammer. Yes, the boy's a spirit master. The 3 examiners looked at each other, smiled at each other, and then pointed to the furnace behind the right, where the fire was burning. Then start your performance. We also want to see if you can become a qualified blacksmith apprentice. Okay. Hongjun rolled up his sleeves, raised his fiery red short hair, and said with a smile, then all teachers, please watch. Hongjun picked up a piece of iron blank weighing about 5 pounds from the pile of pig iron, then picked it up with a clamp and threw it into the furnace. However, looking at the flames in the furnace, Hongjun seemed to feel a little unsatisfied and directly stretched out his hand to add more fire to the flames. Good boy, it turns out that you have a fire attribute martial soul. An examiner was surprised. Yes, a fire attribute martial soul is simply a natural blacksmith. Another examiner also sighed. The last examiner also stared at Ma Xiaopang's figure, and after a long time, he said, yes, at such a young age, you can control your soul power so finely, and it seems that your soul power is not low. Then, the hall fell into a brief silence. Only waves of heat came. It was the end of April, the snow melted into water, the spring breeze blew on the face, and the air was filled with a fragrance that could not be dissipated, which was the smell of nature. Zhang Fei and others standing in the sun all had playful expressions, as if waiting for something good to happen. If the captain fails this time, it will be embarrassing. Jie Chunfeng covered his mouth and laughed. Yes, Master Bear has always been very strict with him. If he fails this time, I don't know how terrible the punishment will be. Verna also smiled and sat in the tea room beside with her arms folded, waiting quietly. However, the 3 examiners in the examination hall were all stunned with surprise. What kind of method is this? How come I have never seen it before? I have never seen this method for decades. Pouring flames into the iron embryo while hammering and casting. The last examiner couldn't help but say, how can ordinary soul masters be willing to work in the blacksmith industry, especially with a strong attacking spirit of fire attribute? The fiery iron embryo had been taken out of the furnace by Hongjun. After several hammering and tempering, the iron embryo had become smaller. The last step was to cast it. Ma Xiaopang first raised the sledgehammer and hammered it for a while, then picked up the exquisite hammer beside him and began to hammer it carefully. The sound was crisp and pleasant, and the clanging sound echoed throughout the hall. With each hammering, Ma Xiaopang would control his soul power and let the flames wrap around the entire iron embryo. The depth of the red color of the burning iron embryo would also vary between hammering. The martial soul controlled by Hongjun was originally a top-level fire attribute martial soul, and the heat of the flame was far beyond imagination. As soon as it came into contact, the iron embryo was burned red. This is equivalent to throwing the iron embryo into the fire and hammering it. It is almost always hot, and it collides with the air and makes a hissing sound, as if the air is ignited. This is the result of Ma Xiaopang's painstaking research during this period of time. As early as a month ago, he was able to create a formed weapon. In order to be able to control the soul power more finely, he tried various ways to use soul power to control the flame and control the strength of the hammer. At the same time, he also used the evil fire to temper himself, refine the impurities in his body, and make his body more transparent. As the impurities were tempered out, his soul power flowed more smoothly, and the speed of cultivation was also greatly improved. During the practice, Ma Xiaopang found that every time the iron embryo was taken out, it would solidify quickly and had to be put into the furnace for further quenching. So he tried to use his flame to wrap the iron embryo so that it was always in a state of balance and kept hitting it with a hammer. In the process, he also found that the iron embryo was more likely to deform, and it was not easy to break during the shaping process. In this way, after a month of painstaking research, Ma Xiaopang was finally able to barely control his own flame and let it wrap around the iron embryo. However, if the temperature of the flame is not careful, it will melt the iron, so this is a great test for his mental strength. After practicing every day, he would feel mentally exhausted, drowsy, and fall asleep on the pillow. However, every time the mental strength is exhausted, it will recover when he wakes up the next day, and the persistence time will be a little longer, which makes Hongjun feel that his mental strength seems to have improved slightly. Even now, beads of sweat the size of rice grains appeared on Hongjun's forehead. This was not caused by the fire, but by the excessive use of mental power. The more subtle the control, the greater the consumption. Martial God Body, Fusion. Ma Xiaopang quietly merged the martial God Body. When the human soul merged into his body, his spirit was shocked, and he felt much more awake in an instant, and the control of the flame was also much simpler. As the iron embryo was constantly hammered, it finally took shape and turned out to be a hammer. The hammer was not big, only about 30 centimeters, but the hammer was very heavy. Ma Xiaopang threw in pig iron several times. Although it was reduced a lot during the quenching process, it was still nearly 20 pounds. After 2 more incense sticks, Ma Xiaopang merged the head and body of the hammer into a hammer, made entirely of iron. For him, it was not very suitable for the body of the hammer to be made of wood, because it did not conduct heat, and he could control the flame. The iron hammer handle was more useful for transferring heat, so as to cast better. Congratulations, you passed. Chapter 94 3 Soul Masters. The 3 examiners walked forward, picked up the successfully cast small iron hammer with a smile, and said, "Good little guy, you can control the soul power so finely at such a young age. Did you research this casting method yourself?" Hongjun wiped the sweat from his forehead and said with a smile, "I'm not talented, I just figured it out by myself." "Great. This hammer method is interesting. It can forge the iron blank so quickly. It's really amazing. After all, not everyone can control the flame and can also transform the use of soul power into iron making. Even the Haoshan sect, which is famous for the Haoshan hammer, only studied the casting hammer method because of the characteristics of the Wuhan Hall, but did not start from the Flame Mountain. The exquisiteness of this little hammer is not something that a junior apprentice can cast. Just based on this, you can reach the title of junior blacksmith." "Black iron?" Ma Xiaopang was stunned. One of the examiners said, "That's right. Above the apprentice is the junior blacksmith, and above that are the intermediate blacksmith, senior blacksmith, master blacksmith, master blacksmith, master blacksmith and divine blacksmith. And there are only 3 divine blacksmiths who have been awarded the title of godlike in the Blacksmith Association." As he spoke, an examiner handed over a waist badge, which was made of unknown metal and had a hammer engraved on it. "This is the identity badge of a junior blacksmith. Come with me to register later, and you can officially become a junior blacksmith." "Thank you, teachers." Ma Xiaopang smiled and nodded repeatedly, then bowed and hurriedly took the identity badge that symbolized a junior blacksmith. "Hey, the team leader is out." Jie Chunfeng's eyes lit up, and while drinking tea, he caught a glimpse of Ma Xiaopang who had just stepped out of the door. It wasn't that the short and stout figure was too conspicuous, but the fiery red short hair and the red clothes were too eye-catching. However, the leg that had just stepped out stopped after a few steps. The same was true for the other people. They just stood up and prepared to speak, but they held back their words. Ma Xiaopang walked with a step that didn't recognize his relatives, holding a shining token in his left hand, waving it there proudly. "No, Ma Xiaopang, your waist badge is not right. It's different from ours. Could it be fake?" Werner asked hesitantly. Jie Chunfeng also took out his ID card and pointed at Ma Xiaopang's ID card and said, "Captain, even if you are forging it, you have to make a decent one, right? Look at ours, and then look at yours. This is obviously not right." Annie, Kinnan and others were silent, but quietly moved away from these idiots. They didn't want to be embarrassed together. Alas, 2 stupid kids. "How long have you been here, and you can't even tell the identity cards apart? You are really incorrigible." Ma Xiaopang shook his head with a look of regret and shook the identity card in his hand again. "Yours is just a junior apprentice ID card. Mine is a formal token. Your team leader. I'm a registered junior blacksmith." "Junior blacksmith?" Jie Chunfeng's face gradually became solemn. He seemed to understand a little. "I don't believe it. Give it to me to see." Werner was a little unconvinced. She grabbed Ma Xiaopang's ID card, weighed it carefully, and found that it was indeed much heavier than her own. The workmanship was also very fine, and there was a small hammer carved with dragon patterns on it. "Okay Nina, this ID card is indeed real." Annie on the side couldn't bear it, stepped forward and patted Werner on the shoulder. "Yes, Sister Nap, this is indeed a junior blacksmith ID card. I have seen it in the Union, and it is exactly the same as this one." Lance he also stepped forward to attack her. "Selling sesame cakes, delicious and big sesame cakes Tanghulu, by Tanghulu." As the shouting around continued, Vern looked at the token in her hand with a red face, and threw it directly at Ma Hongjun in anger. "Humph, it's true. Isn't she just 1 level higher than us? She's still a blacksmith. Who cares? Even if it's a gift to me. Well, in an instant, more than a dozen eyes came and went, and even the old grandfather selling candied whores next to him cast a sharp look. Ma Xiaopang was quick and covered Werner's mouth and hurriedly apologized to the people around him. I'm sorry, everyone. My sister is like this. She has no control over her mouth and always likes to talk nonsense. Humph, if you can't talk, don't talk. Little girl, be careful in the future. Don't accidentally get your tongue bitten by the wind. I'm really sorry, everyone. I will definitely discipline my sister strictly. After Ma Xiaopang and others apologized again and again, the anger of the people around them was calmed down. Seeing that they were still a little bit calm, they didn't make a big fuss. After all, this is the metal capital, Junction City, and the headquarters of the Blacksmith Association. Being able to live in this fire city is more about the love of the blacksmith industry, so they don't allow anyone to insult this industry. A group of people first came to the Xiangxing Guild and found Fang Ying, and then returned to their accommodation to pack their bags. I don't know what the aesthetic level of the guild here is, and the names they choose are simply not flattering. Walking on the way back, Jie Chunfeng wondered as he walked, what Iron King, Xiangxing, Earth, Blacksmith number 1. What are these? Okay, don't complain there, they just gave it a name. What's your business? Kinnan rolled his eyes at him speechlessly. Who said it's not my business? However, before he finished speaking, a figure suddenly appeared out of thin air. It was Xiang Qishan, who had disappeared for an unknown period of time. Congratulations, everyone. All 10 people in the group have successfully completed the test. It was a rare day with clear skies. Xiang Qishan put his hands behind his back and congratulated everyone, with a faint smile on his lips. Next, let's pack up and prepare to return to Wuhan City. Xiang Qishan continued with a smile. It's the same as when we came here, and the weight will be increased. No one will gain 20 kilograms, and the time will not change. Ah, no way. In this way, the group embarked on the journey back, but because they were familiar with the route when they came, and the ice and snow had melted, the speed was much faster. Hey, look, the 3 people standing on the city wall seem familiar. Zhang Fei pointed at the 3 figures on the city wall and said. Jie Chunfeng slapped Zhang Fei on the forehead and said strangely, do you have a bump on your head? We just beat them a few months ago, and you forgot it? Hulina, Ziyu and Yan above also saw them early, and they showed their martial souls and spirit rings at the same time. Soul Master. After 3 months of hard training, the 3 of them almost reached level 30 at the same time, and under the guidance of the Wuhan Hall instructor, they obtained the appropriate spirit rings, and became Soul Masters. Looks like there's going to be some fun this time. Even Fatty Ma couldn't help but stop joking at this point. After all, Soul Masters have an overwhelming advantage over Great Soul Masters, and there are 3 of them. Chapter 95. Ma Xiaoxio's resentment. This is simply a naked provocation. Crass looked at the scene on the city wall. His eyes seemed to be spitting fire. What can we do? They are Soul Masters. What can you, a Great Soul Master, do to them? Jie Chunfeng said helplessly. They shouldn't have come back. Isn't this just to be abused? Kinnan looked at Ma Hongjun, who put down his backpack and asked, what can we do this time, Captain? Ma Xiaopang shook his head. A sneak attack is definitely impossible. This time they are prepared. If they want to continue to carry out the sneak attack, they will definitely fall into the enemy's trap. Yes, the reason why we were able to win last time was ultimately because of the surprise attack. Once they were prepared, the difference in soul power would be revealed. Now there are 3 Soul Masters. Werner also made a rare calm analysis. She was really irritated by Ma Xiaopang during this period. Okay, don't worry, everyone. The competition will probably be the day after tomorrow. Let's get together tomorrow to discuss it. Ma Xiaopang dropped the heavy object on his back with a thud and waved to Hulina and the other 2 on the wall with a smile. Let's go, everyone. Go home. At dusk, the sun gradually set. This time, they only took 13 days to reach Wuhan City, 2 days faster than expected. After returning home, Ma Xiaopang first saw Shia sitting in the living room. You're back. Shia glanced at him lightly, and then continued to sit on the chair with her legs crossed, drinking tea leisurely. Well, I'm back, teacher. Ma Xiaopang walked up and poured himself a cup of tea. He drank it for the whole afternoon and then asked, "By the way, teacher, where is the master? Hasn't he come back yet?" On the day of the new year, Douluo followed several elders out, and the crowd was huge. In order to save his son Kaiang Sunji from running away, Kaiang Douluo issued the Spirit Hall's highest wanted order, which also caused the people in Spirit City to be in turmoil for the whole day. "No, he's still outside. He wrote back a few days ago, saying that he didn't find anything. I think he should be back soon." Ma Xiaopang had foreseen this matter. After all, Tang Heo had always been protecting Tang San on his growth path. If it weren't for the exposure in the last game, Tang Heo probably wouldn't have shown up. After all, he is a titled Douluo, so it's easy to hide and not be found. Douluo continent is so big, and it's not like the huge monsters like the sky blue bull python and the titan giant ape that can't be covered. As long as you find a house to hide casually, even if someone passes by, they may not be found. This large-scale search operation is doomed to end in vain. How is your practice? Bear Demon Douluo is a strict guy. I'm afraid you have suffered a lot during this period. Shia nodded and asked. Since she came to Wuhan City, she has been cultivating herself more and more. Without Douglas Courtyard to quarrel with her, Shia's temper has no way to explode. Except for occasionally taking her goddaughter Ma Xiaoxio out for a stroll, she has nothing else to do. I'm already a level 27 teacher, and I've also become a junior blacksmith certified by the Blacksmith Association. Ma Xiaopang replied with a smile. Junior blacksmith? Shia turned around and said in surprise, "You're good, brat. You've only been out for more than 3 months, and you've become a junior blacksmith? Of course, don't you think about whose apprentice you are? It's just blacksmithing. I'm self-taught." Ma Xiaopang raised his hair proudly. Shia glared at him. "Who are you with, kid? You haven't had a fight for a few months, and you're itching again." "I was wrong, teacher." Ma Xiaopang immediately stood aside and changed the subject. "By the way, teacher Shia, where are my parents and sister? I haven't seen them for a long time. Did they go out to play?" Shia replied, "Your parents went out to find a job. It seems they are helping in the kitchen of a restaurant. As for Ma Xiaoxio, the teacher sent her to the academy to study. Even if she can't practice, she can always learn something useful." "Study?" Hongjun was stunned at first, and then laughed. "Teacher Shia, you are great. Sending her to study is the right choice. It will change her temper." Shia rolled her eyes speechlessly and continued to drink tea, not bothering to pay attention to him. "Then I'll go make the meal. Teacher Shia, they should all be back." Ma Xiaopang twisted his hips and ran towards the kitchen happily. That look was as funny as it could be. Ma Xiaoxio was actually sent to school. It was simply great. Seeing that it was getting dark, Shia also came to the dining table, waiting for the meal to start. After all, she also agreed with Ma Xiaopang's cooking skills, especially the water fish he made, which seemed simple, but the taste was really amazing. Bang! "Godmother, I'm back." The voice came before the person arrived. This unique voice must be Ma Xiaoxio. Hongjun walked silently to the kitchen door, pushed the door closed and locked it from the inside. Wow, so rich. As soon as Ma Xiaoxio walked into the dining room, she smelled a pungent fragrance, very strong. The smell of various minced garlic and chili mixed together, filling the whole living room. "Did any guests come today, godmother? Such a table of sumptuous dishes looks better than those in the store." Di replied, "No guests, but there is an acquaintance." Ma Xiaoxio was stunned. When she looked at the dishes on the table carefully, she felt familiar with the way of presentation. Then her eyes lit up and she shouted, "Is it Ma Xiaopang who is back?" Di nodded indifferently and stopped talking. "When I recognized her as my goddaughter before, why didn't I feel that this little girl was chattering and talking like a sparrow every day, and her head was getting big? Alas, I'm a 50-year-old man, and I have to be quiet every day." Di picked up the chopsticks and began to taste. But what she ate was only stewed dishes. After all, Ma Xiaopang's parents had not come back yet. "I'll go see him." Ma Xiaoxio ran out in a flash. However, soon, the whole house was filled with the sound of knocking on the door, and the sound was deafening. Open the door. Pang. Open the door for your sister quickly. While lock the door when you're cooking. Masayaxio kicked and bumped the door in anger, but unfortunately, her weak body had no strength at all. Her arms were numb from bumping the door, and she didn't make any more space at all. Okay, Xiaoxio's sister, stop bumping. I'll come out when I'm done. You go to the living room and wait. In the end, with a table full of delicious dishes, the family happily talked about everything. Except for Xiaoxio, who sat silently in the corner, looking at the people at the table with resentment. The scene was extremely harmonious. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, A Weird Decision. What do you think? When those guys have formed their formation, they suddenly say something like that. Will they be furious? Jie Chunfeng walked in the middle of the team and couldn't help asking with a smile. Why think so much? There are still 5 one-on-one matches later. You should think about how to solve them first. Class rolled his eyes at him with a smile. Before the team competition, there will be 5 one-on-one matches. Since there is no order of appearance, they chose to draw lots. As the captain, Pang must participate in the competition. There are 3 soul masters on the opposite side. In order to decide the remaining 2 places to be abused, everyone can only decide to use a draw to determine the candidates. Jie Chunfeng successfully drew Hulina, which worried her to death. She was afraid that she would not surrender in time and be beaten up after being enchanted. That would be a big loss. At this time, Hongjun's soul power had reached level 27, and Fang Ying, Verna, Annie and Kinnan had all reached level 24. The rest of the people also reached level 23 one after another, which was very balanced. But compared to Hulina's team, the difference is quite big. Except for Hulina, Ziyu and Yan, the other team has reached level 30 or above, and the remaining 7 are all above level 25. With their defense, their strength is much higher than that of Hongjun and others. Humph, at worst, I will walk up with my eyes closed. From the beginning, I shouted surrender, and never gave that woman a chance. Jie Chunfeng gritted his teeth, his eyes full of resentment. Okay, you guys, aren't you ashamed? You're here to surrender. Fight hard, otherwise how can you know where the gap between you and others is? Pang rolled his eyes at everyone. As the captain, he felt that he had to take the lead. He had to fight well and set a good example later, but he couldn't lose his momentum. You can afford to lose this person, but I can't. Isn't it just a few levels higher? Tangsun can challenge him across levels. As a traverser, can't I do it? Soon, several people walked into the big fighting spirit arena. As the fighting arena in the gathering place of Soul Masters in Wuhan City, the area of the big fighting arena is not to be underestimated. It has multiple competition arenas, and the betting area is always full of people lining up. After all, gambling is not lacking anywhere. People who take shortcuts are not lacking in any world. No one does not want to get something for nothing, and does not want to become rich overnight, and become the best of the best. However, there are too few successful people. In addition to relying on luck, things that are probabilistic can also be cheated. It just depends on who is cheating, and whether they will be discovered. But even so, there are still countless people rushing in with jealous eyes, hoping to be the lucky one, to soar into the sky. Wait a minute, I'll be there soon. Pang ran over with a smile, and with the help of his short stature, he twisted his butt and squeezed in. Oh. Annie and others were stunned, looked at each other, and their expressions were inexplicable. Ahem, our team leader has this hobby. Kinnan deliberately coughed twice, revealing a smile that everyone understood. Pang didn't buy much. He just bought for a feeling. He didn't care whether he won or lost. He just bought the more stable side. He would come out after the game and take a look. Okay, everyone, let's go. Why are you still standing there? Pang waved his little paws, signaling them to follow. Verna waved her face with disdain. Humph, what a greedy guy. Okay, let's follow. Annie walked forward and pushed Verna forward quickly. When everyone walked in, Hulina and others had already been waiting on the side. Seeing Ma Xiaopang and others come in, their eyes were not very good, as if they had met a creditor who owed him 1 million. Ghost Douluo and Xiang Mo Douluo also stood on the viewing platform, standing with their hands behind their backs. You bunch of stinky boys, you are late again. Don't you have a sense of time? Xiang Qishan scolded loudly, his eyes wide open, and his rough voice echoed throughout the venue. After the game is over, none of you are allowed to eat lunch. Got it, instructor? Werner, Kinnan and the others all lowered their heads. As for the punishment and anger of Bear Demon Douluo, except Ghost Douluo, everyone else could only bear it. Even Hulina, Bibi Dong's direct disciple, was scolded. Okay, without further ado, according to the last agreement, each party will first send out 5 disciples for a one-on-one competition, and then the team competition. Ghost Douluo said sternly, this competition is the same as the last time. It will stop when it is necessary. No malicious behavior that harms others is allowed. Okay, you old ghost is talking so much nonsense. Don't waste time. If you want to compete, just compete quickly. This time I specially sent them back from Junction City. It will simply affect my practice plan. Xiang Qishan, who has a bad temper, just doesn't like to talk much. He interrupted Ghost Douluo's words with annoyance, waved his hand and said directly, "Dear little ghosts, the competition officially begins." Yan stepped onto the ring quickly, waved to Ma Xiaopang and others, and then pointed directly at Ma Xiaopang and said, "Little fatty, dare you come up and compete with me? Don't worry, it's enough. I won't break your hands and feet." Yan was full of confidence. As he spoke, his soul rings were revealed, revealing his 3 soul rings, and he smiled complacently. Do you dare? This guy. Zhang Fei had a bad temper, how could he stand such a provocation, and was ready to rush forward. However, he was stopped by Ma Hongjun as soon as he took a step forward. "I'm the one who provoked you. Why are you so anxious?" he said, looking at Crass and others beside him, and said, "Hurry up. Drag him back for me, and then you just stand there and watch how I, the captain, deal with him." Ma Xiaopang raised his head and walked slowly towards the ring, with a sinister smile on his lips, and whispered, "Really, there are still people who deserve to be dealt with now, how shameless." Even in the novels of Douluo continent, there are very few descriptions of Yan, which only stay in the golden generation. His martial soul is the Lord of Fire, and the flame of Magna level is stronger than Mahongjun's Phoenix Evil Fire. Earth is inherently restrained by fire, and the addition of dual attributes is almost unsolvable. If it weren't for Yan's more developed mind, he would act rashly and be easily influenced by emotions, especially when facing Hulina. He would be like an idiot, thus seriously wasting his talent. Martial God Body, Fusion. As soon as he stepped onto the ring, Mahongjun decisively fused the martial god body. Even if he was restrained, even if his soul power level was suppressed, could his strength not be able to beat a supporting role that was not even considered a character? Chapter 97 Complete Destruction. You know, here's a time traveler with 2 martial souls. He has a soul power of level 27, how much worse than Yan, who has a soul power of only level 31. Or level 32 or 33. After integrating the martial god body, he has been able to achieve 62% of all-round attribute conquest. Because of the excessive consumption of soul power, it can't be maintained for too long. But now he has not only a soul power of level 27, but also opened up 34 acupoints. These 34 lit acupoints are all stored with his soul power, which can be called up in times of crisis. In addition, during this period of time, he has tempered his body with evil fire, and his body has long been much stronger than before, and his recovery ability is also incomparable to the past. Even if Yan has one more soul skill, what can it do? Many of the martial arts that he studied every day can be used in this world by borrowing soul power. With his fine control of soul power, he can already play a similar power to soul skills. First soul skill, Bloody Night Shroud. Speed is Mahongjun's advantage. Yan suffered a lot from this in the first competition. So when he saw Mahongjun moving left and right towards him, Yan instantly opened his first soul skill to try to restrain Mahongjun's speed. Just as he expected, Mahongjun, who was stepping on the phantom step, slowed down a little. Yan rushed out instantly and played the second soul skill, Void Dragon Claw, towards Hongjun. After seeing this scene, Hongjun decisively spread his 6 wings and flew into the air. Seeing Yan's back exposed to him, Hongjun immediately made a palm with his right hand. Good opportunity. His body suddenly fell from the sky. With the speed brought by the 6 wings, he rushed down like a fireball. Martial arts, powerful Vajra Palm. This is a powerful martial arts from Shaolin, which concentrates all the power in the palm and is surprisingly powerful. Hongjun's right palm was like a piece of red hot iron at this time, red with white, and it hit Yan's shoulder directly. "Hey, you fell into the trap, little fat man." Yan sneered, then suddenly raised his head, opened his mouth, and aimed at Hongjun, who was diving down, and played his third soul skill. Third soul skill, Soul Breaking Dragon Roar. A majestic airflow turned into a terrifying magma, spewing out from Yan's mouth, and almost instantly wrapped up Hongjun, who was diving down. Oh no, the captain fell into the trap. Kinnan and others saw Hongjun being wrapped in magma, and they stood up with solemn faces. Zhang Fei, Werner and others almost rushed directly to the ring. "Why are you in such a hurry? Can't you see that both title Douluo are here? The captain will be fine." Annie hurriedly pulled the 2 of them together and nodded to Ghost Douluo and Bear Demon Douluo above. With 2 Douluo watching at all times, it is difficult for the 2 to really cause serious injuries, even if they fight desperately. After all, they are the future elite generation of the Spirit Hall, and they cannot be harmed by their own people. "Good job, Yan. Well done." Behind Hulina, several teammates shouted excitedly. "Not bad. It seems that Yan has some brains today," Ziyu commented on the side. Hulina remained silent, just watching the battle on the field quietly. Martial arts, golden bell cover. Dung. It was like the sound of an iron rod hitting an iron bell, shaking off the surrounding magma flames, and a transparent golden bell appeared in front of everyone, all buckled down, completely blocking Yan's third soul skill. "What?" Ziyu looked at the transparent golden bell that suddenly appeared on the ring in surprise. His eyes were extremely solemn. Is this also his self-created soul skill? It should be. His soul power has not reached the level of Soul Master. Hulina's martial soul is a demon fox, which can sense the fluctuation of soul power better than other people, and her charming eyes seem to see through everything. What a monster. Ziyu swallowed a mouthful of saliva with a sob. You know, Yan used the third soul skill unexpectedly, but Hongjun actually blocked the attack with his own self-created soul skill. And looking at his appearance, he actually looked like he was at ease. After shaking away the energy around, the golden bell slowly dissipated, and then Marzianapang stopped in midair. Martial skill, Flame Blade. This time it was really created by Hongjun himself. After this period of blacksmithing training, his control of soul power has become more refined. He can still condense a flame blade similar to a flying knife without the help of a soul ring, and it shines between the 6-winged cattail leaf fan. 6 flame blades were chopped out in a row, attacking from both sides, making it hard to defend. You are a teachable boy. It seems that your training this time was quite successful. Xiang Kishan stroked his beard complacently, glancing at the Ghost Douluo next to him from time to time, making Ghost Douluo so angry that he couldn't help but turn his head away. Don't be complacent. Although Yan is impulsive, his strength should not be underestimated. The flame blade slashed at Yan, and Yan saw that he had no way to avoid it, so he simply used the fire and earth attributes of his martial soul, the Flame Lord, to support his defense and resist it. Although his clothes were a little torn, he still withstood it. The skin at the wound was not seriously injured except for some redness and swelling. Humph, do you think you can block it like this? Yan just raised his head, and Marzianapang had already pulled him close, and his knees followed closely to his lower abdomen. Not good. Ziyu exclaimed. Yan subconsciously stretched out his hand to block, but it was too late. He couldn't resist at all, and his whole back arched. Puff. A mouthful of saliva shot out of his mouth, and Yan was kicked directly out. However, Marzianapang did not decide to let him go. Although he had put away his soul wings at this time, Tianzong stepped in the air and caught up with Yan, who had nowhere to get support in the air. He used a series of moves and various joint skills to hit Yan without any resistance, but he controlled each blow just right. Although Yan was in great pain, he did not suffer any serious injuries. Alas, I lost. Ghost Douluo sighed and continued to pay attention to the game on the ring. I'll kick you again. After a series of moves, Yan had no room to fight back. The air was his weakness. The last kick felt like a battle axe, hitting Yan's belly hard, kicking him directly off the ring. Oh yeah. Good job, Captain. Je Chunfeng and others danced with excitement. The Soul Master fought against the Great Soul Master, but was completely defeated by the Great Soul Master. It was so exciting. Humph, what's there to shout about? I'll come to the next game. A thin man with a sinister look walked out of Ulina's team. You, who's next? I'll do it. Verna twisted her waist and walked onto the ring. As both of them were agile attackers, they were going to have some fun. Chapter 98 Anna's Power. Come on, Sister Na, Lan Zhi, you minimum and others stood in the audience, cheering for Verna. Both sides were agile attack spirit masters, and the other's spirit power was not much higher than Verna's, so there was no huge gap, so this match was completely fun. Both little guys are agile attack spirit masters, even if the strength difference is not big, but if you are not careful, you can decide the winner. Ghost Douluo made a judgment. This battle is destined to be very fast. On the ring, two voices were like ghosts, colliding quickly and then separating quickly. Everything happened in a flash. If Hongjun had not been possessed by the martial god body, with a 62% full attribute bonus, otherwise his speed alone would not be enough. After all, he mainly fought in the air with his 6 wings spread out, and he fought by surprise. In just a dozen collisions, countless cuts were made on the clothes of the two, and there were traces of claws scratching on their bodies, and blood was faintly seeping out. You bitch, you're still okay. You can hold on until now. The thin man looked sinister. Although there were a few ugly scars on his face, it didn't affect the battle much. Compared with the panting Verna, he was obviously much more relaxed. Are you still fighting? Or just surrender directly, so as not to suffer more physical pain and hurt your beautiful face? The thin man teased. Verna snorted coldly, it's not over yet, don't be complacent. Verna's calmness had long been worn out by Ma Xiaopang's usual tantrums. Her temper became increasingly irritable. Facing the enemy's ridicule, she couldn't help but rush forward. Come again. The two figures went back and forth on the stage, but Verna was not as perverted as Ma Xiaopang. She was kicked in the waist by the thin man, because of a careless hand, and finally lost the battle. How is it? Are you okay? Hongjun hurriedly asked, after catching Verna who fell off the ring. It's okay, just a minor injury. Help me up, I can still fight. Verna wiped the corner of her mouth, and wanted to get up, but was held down by Ma Xiaopang. Okay, just lie down and rest. He's just a small character. There will be plenty of opportunities to deal with him in the future. Ma Xiaopang pressed his shoulder, and then asked Lan Zi to come over and treat him, and then Verna's injuries recovered. Seeing another opponent walking up to the ring, Ma Xiaopang glanced at Annie, and signaled that she could go up. Be careful, don't attack forcefully, focus on control and containment. If he wants to defend against your ice, his soul power consumption must be greater than yours. Ma Xiaopang reminded. Well, I understand. Annie nodded, gave everyone a thumbs up, and pouted mischievously. Everyone, let's watch me next. Annie twisted her slender waist, her snow white and flowing hair fluttering, and walked onto the ring gracefully. Please advise. The opponent was also a woman, and she looked like a strong attack type, a tigress. Come on. The battle was about to break out. After the opponent released his martial spirit, a possessed body rushed over instantly. Annie did not collide with her head on, but used the characteristics of ice to control and attack from the ground in front, slowing down the opponent's speed while she kept a distance. In this way, the opponent was gradually exhausted by Annie and roared with gritted teeth. If you have the guts, don't hide. What's the point of running around? Annie laughed and said, okay, then let's decide the outcome in one move. After one move, the winner will be clear. Humph, that's better. Then come on. Anna's martial spirit is the Ice Phoenix, a top level beast martial spirit with extremely powerful ice power. Although it focuses on attack and defense, its explosive power is comparable to that of a strong attack spirit master. This little girl is a little too impulsive. Ghost Douluo glanced at Xian Kishan on the side, but found that he didn't seem to react. Then Ghost Douluo turned his gaze to the ring. Humph, a control system actually wants to fight against a strong attack system. This is interesting. The people behind Hulina sneered. However, on Hongjun's side, except for Lanzi and others who were a little anxious, the rest of them were very calm and seemed not to care much about the competition on the field. Jechun Feng whispered, Anna's talent is second only to our team leader, and she actually wants to fight against her. This time this woman is in trouble. Second soul skill, tiger or kill. The opponent launched the attack first, and he was not willing to fall behind. Although her first soul skill was a control system, her second soul skill was also very aggressive. Second soul skill, Blizzard Fall. Two figures rushed in at the same time, but Anna's soul skill seemed to be restrained. Tiger or Kill broke the surface a little and soon made a hole in Anna's second soul skill and rushed towards her position. Seeing the enemy rushing in instantly, Annie was not panicked at all, but quietly stepped back 2 steps. You've fallen into the trap, and waved her hands, and a series of white cold storms gathered and condensed quickly. Falling leaf palm. Anne waved her left hand, and a cold air condensed. At the same time, with the help of her second soul skill, the blizzard, she directly hit the opponent's body and shifted it by more than 10 inches. However, it was this distance of more than 10 inches that completely changed the situation. It was this distance of more than 10 inches that made the enemy's full strength attack miss, and Anne also raised her right palm, once again led the surrounding blizzard to fall, and hit the opponent's abdomen with a palm, directly hitting her flying out, completely losing the power to fight. Oh my god, Miss Anne's move is too powerful, isn't it? Class opened his eyes wide in surprise. Although he knew that Miss Anne had been asking the captain for advice for the past month or two, it was a pity that the use of soul power was not sophisticated enough, and she could never fight in actual combat. However, this time, with the storm brought by the second soul skill, she actually succeeded, and also launched an unexpected offensive, even more difficult to defend than Ma Xiaopang's. It's really amazing. Anna's move was unexpected, and caught the opponent off guard. Kinnan on the side also commented. Zhang Fei looked at Annie waving at them on the stage, patted Ma Xiaopang on the shoulder, and said with watery eyes, Captain, the golden bell cover you just used, is it also a self-created soul skill? Can you teach me? Ma Xiaopang said with a smile. This is a bit difficult. If you want to learn it, I can teach you later. Thank you, Captain. Zhang Fei jumped up happily. As a piece of meat, he is still very conscious and is completely developing towards defense. As long as you can't hit me, I win. Chapter 99 Unified Slogan. Under the ring, Hulina and others helped their teammates down and put them on the chairs beside them. After making sure that their teammates were fine, they looked over with gritted teeth. It's my turn next. I want to see if the guys on the opposite side are also perverted. Ziyu clenched his fists. His team's successive defeats made him a little angry. As a soul master, he didn't believe that anyone could beat him by crossing a soul ring gap. Alas, I thought the class I taught was already a genius among geniuses, but I didn't expect that there would be a monster in your class. Ghost Douluo sighed. Bear Demon Douluo smiled inexplicably and said sarcastically, what do you know? It's obviously my teaching that's good. On the ring, Ziyu summoned the martial soul moon blade and held it in his hand. He was like a king who was invincible and looked at Hongjun and others with sharp eyes. Hey, it's my turn. Crass swaggered onto the stage. He was a great soul master, but he faced a 32nd level soul master with a level 23 soul power. I don't know where he got the confidence from. The speed of a strong attack system soul master can't match Ziyu's weapon soul, and Kratz's defense can't keep up with Zhang Fei at all. But the smile on his mouth made Ziyu on the stage couldn't help but be surprised. Where does this guy get his confidence from? Xian Kishan on the high platform twitched his mouth. He knew the details of these little guys. Although Kratz had good talent, he was still far behind Hongjun and others. Not to mention a challenge of a high level. Even if Ziyu's soul power was the same as his, he might not win. My opponent is you? It must be said that this calm momentum really shocked Ziyu, forcing him to be on guard, to avoid following in the footsteps of his teammates. That's right, it's me. My name is Crass. I'm your opponent today. You better remember that. Crass pointed at himself with a thumbs up and was invincible. You're pretending to be so arrogant. Don't get beaten up so badly that you can't even raise your head. Jie Chunfeng couldn't help but mutter. Okay, then come on. Ziyu bent down, with the moon blade in his hand on his back. He exerted force on his feet, and his body flew out like a sword. Seeing this, Crass directly used his second soul skill, and swung it out. However, after seeing Ziyu blocking with the moon blade, Crass decisively raised his hands and shouted loudly, I surrender. Ziyu, who had just taken his left foot, paused, and almost lost control of the moon blade in his hand. The bear demon Douluo on the high platform also stumbled and almost tripped. How dare this brat? Bear demon Douluo's eyes widened. He never thought that Crass would surrender after just using one skill. Yan and others were also stunned, and then gritted their teeth and said, fuck, he has no martial ethics. He surrendered before he even used his ultimate skill. Isn't that disgusting? However, Crass was not going to pay attention to this group of people. Surrender was something they had planned long ago. A great soul master challenged a soul master? Just kidding. I'm not as perverted as the captain. I can still save some strength by surrendering at ease. If I get beaten, it would be really embarrassing. Want to save face from last time? We have to give him a chance. Crass triumphantly gave the other party a middle finger, then decisively jumped off the stage, waving his hand without taking away a cloud. In the last one-on-one match, Hulina and Jie Chunfeng went on stage. As soon as she got on the stage, Hulina dodged and rushed out, not prepared to talk nonsense with the other party. Fuck, you are not following martial ethics. Jie Chunfeng was stunned, and then he cursed loudly, and quickly raised his hands to shout surrender. I surrender. Charm. However, before Jie Chunfeng could finish his words, Hulina took advantage of the moment when Jie Chunfeng was distracted and used her charm from a distance of more than 10 meters. Poor Jie Chunfeng was seduced by Hulina before he could finish his words and fell into a short state of unconsciousness. Hulina, who came close, gently slid Jie Chunfeng's chin with her fingertips and then punched and kicked him fiercely. Poor Jie Chunfeng woke up after being hit in the abdomen. Just as he was about to surrender, Hulina punched him in the mouth and hit back what he wanted to say. I surrender. I surrender. Although poor Jie Chunfeng was a sensitive attack spirit master, Hulina's fox charm was too disgusting, and she could always make her fall into a short state of unconsciousness. Moreover, Hulina had grasped the size just right, and the force was not too strong, just within the range of her movement speed. This time, old Jie has lost face. Zhang Fei stroked his forehead speechlessly. Even he felt panic for Jie Chunfeng. It is estimated that after the game is over, he should be able to be quiet for a long time. It seems that you taught well. One surrendered, and the other was beaten into a pig's head. Ghost Douluo also mocked. Xiang Qishan snorted coldly, puffing his beard and glaring, saying, humph, my education is targeted at people. These two little guys don't seem to be suitable for my current training mode. After this game is over, I will give them a good special training. On the ring, Jie Chunfeng fell down with a thud and finally landed. Hulina also stood on tiptoe, smiled lightly and stood aside, without the tendency to continue attacking. I surrender. Jie Chunfeng raised his right hand weakly and finally finished saying these three words. You minimum and Lan Zhi ran up to the ring in tacit understanding and treated him. However, the swollen wound on his face was difficult to dissipate for a while. If they hadn't known in advance that this person was Jie Chunfeng, they might not have recognized him at first sight. It was really too miserable. Then next, it's the team competition. Hulina didn't leave the ring, and the rest of the people also walked onto the ring. Wait. Jie Chunfeng shouted for a pause, and then ran off the ring quickly. After a while, a masked knight came up, and I don't know where he got the black cloth from, but he wrapped his whole face tightly. Dear little guys, the team competition is next. Are you ready? On the high platform, Ghost Douluo acted as the referee. No problem, mentor, you can start anytime. Although both sides had people injured, they were only skin injuries, and basically nothing serious. We have no problem either. Ma Xianpang replied. Okay, the next is a team competition. You guys prepare yourself. Ma Xiaopang turned around, looked at his 9 teammates, then stretched out his right hand, cheered everyone up and said, "Come on everyone, remember our unified slogan, let's shout it out together later." However, no one paid attention to him. Ma Xiaopang turned around, raised his right hand and shouted, "Everyone, what is a slogan?" Then, a group of people raised their hands. Except for Ma Xiaopang and Jie Chunfeng, the voices of others were slightly louder. "We surrender." "What?" Ghost Douluo and Bear Demon Douluo asked in unison. They all thought they had heard it wrong. "I said we surrender, teacher." Ma Xiaopang smiled and said, "There are 3 soul masters on the opposite side. We are not sure yet, so we surrender naturally. When our strength is improved next time, we will fight again. Yes, a man can bend and stretch. If you can't beat them, don't fight. Anyway, they are not life and death enemies. Is it necessary to decide the winner?" Jie Chunfeng said incoherently. After a long while, Ghost Douluo on the high platform finally spoke. "That's right, then this competition will end here." Chapter 100. Heading to the Star Forest. Walking out of the fighting arena, the sun was just above my head. The sun in mid-May was already showing its heat. Even after a few games, it was only noon. When Hongjun and 10 other people walked out of the fighting arena side by side, the people around looked at them with strange eyes. These little guys are too miserable. Yeah, they were beaten like pigs. I'm afraid my mother won't recognize them when they go back. I don't know which beast was so cruel that he didn't even let the little girl go. He's really a beast. Humph. The few people who couldn't help but comment indignantly were blown away by a cold snort before they finished speaking. They flew high into the air and disappeared. No one knew where they flew to. The onlookers who had originally planned to step forward to show their concern immediately scattered like birds and beasts and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The person who came was Xian Kishan, who followed Hongjun and others out. The reason why Hongjun, Annie and 10 others had swollen faces like buns was all his masterpiece, which he called the punishment for losing. After all, he treated them to a meal if they won, but if they lost, they would be punished. They had to run all the way back to Junction City with this face, and no one was allowed to cover it. This was the punishment Xian Kishan thought of. This was an unbearable punishment for Ma Xiaopang, Jie Chunfeng and others, not to mention Werner and others who always loved beauty. It was simply a torture, an inhuman torture. This old guy is simply a devil. What are you looking at? Seeing Werner and the others looking at him with resentful eyes, Xian Kishan snorted coldly, "Hurry up and pack your things. Meet at the city gate in an hour. Your vacation is cancelled. Let's go to practice now." The poor burden increased again. The group stood at the gate of Wuhan City in an orderly manner. People passing by pointed and talked about it. It was not until late at night that Xian Kishan ordered them to set off. "It's all your fault. What a bad idea." Werner kicked Ma Hongjun while trotting and complaining. Yu Minimum also rubbed her swollen cheeks and couldn't help whispering, "I would rather be beaten in the ring than suffer such torture." A few months ago, they were still laughing at Ma Xiaopang's swollen cheeks, but now their faces are swollen like pig heads. This is simply a great shame for girls, and they have to stand at the city gate and let people comment on them. What kind of devilish punishment is this? Okay, everyone, stop complaining. We will disperse when we get to Junction City. Be patient. This time we will choose some sparsely populated mountain roads to walk on, so we won't be afraid of being seen. Although he also wanted to get rid of the redness and swelling on his face, who knew where the old guy Xiang Mo Douluo was hiding and spying? If he found out that his group did not obey his orders, who knows what kind of vicious punishment would greet them? Thinking of the laughter of Hulina and others before leaving, he got angry. It's just a loss of a game. What's there to be proud of? Next time, I will deal with you, a vixen. Who a mouthful of flames spit out and pierced through a huge rock 10 meters away. It was fine when he was in Junction City some time ago. He consumed his physical strength by forging iron every day and tempered himself with evil fire. The influence of evil fire on his body almost did not appear again. But after returning to Wuhan City, as soon as he relaxed, the evil fire in his body began to riot again, and it would tend to surge from time to time. If it weren't for the soul power and the acupoints and the suppression of the martial god body, Hongjun really didn't know what he would do. No, I must solve this hidden danger quickly. It's not a solution to drag it on like this. If he continued like this, he was really afraid that one day he would be unable to resist breaking into the tent of Annie and others. If he broke into the tent of Annie and others, he could still bear it. What he was afraid of was that the evil fire would surge at night and attack Zhang Fei and others in the next bed. Then his face would really be embarrassed. Next time when the soul power reaches level 30, I will go to the Xingdao Great Forest to have a look. I hope that the old poisonous creature is not there. Hongjun has already thought about it. At that time, Xiangmo Douluo will definitely accompany him to hunt soul beasts. He accidentally led him in that direction, and he believed that it should not be a big problem. Even if the poison relayed by the old poisonous creature is useful for most soul masters and soul beasts, it is probably still unable to defend against Xiang Qishan, who is also a titled Douluo. According to Xiang Qishan, this training will last until the end of the year, and they will not return to Wuhan City in the middle, so they will practice in the Metal City until the end of the year, and he will definitely break through to level 30 during this period, and then they will definitely go to the Stardao Great Forest. And the fact is, just as Hongjun expected, it took him nearly 5 months to finally cultivate his soul power to the bottleneck of level 30. The next step is to hunt soul beasts to obtain soul rings. You have cultivated to level 30? Xiang Qishan was also a little shocked by this news. You know, until now, Hongjun has just turned 8 years old, and it has only been a year and a half since he performed the awakening ceremony. Even if he is born with full soul power, the speed of cultivation is really beyond his imagination. Don't go to the blacksmith shop tomorrow. Adjust your state and consolidate your cultivation. I will take you to the soul beast forest to hunt soul rings the day after tomorrow morning. Yes, mentor. When Xiang Qishan left, Kinnan and others all surrounded him, pinching him left and right, and they all wanted to eat Ma Xiaopang alive, wanting to see how he practiced and why he was so perverted. Werner even secretly took out a dagger, but was hit by Ma Xiaopang's hip hit and ran out of the room. On the morning of the third day, Ma Xiaopang packed his bags early and followed Xiang Qishan, running all the way to the Xingdao Great Forest. As for the carriage, it didn't exist. It was just a carriage for some people to sit in for comfort. They were running, but these horses were not as fast as them. Recalling the anime he had watched before, Ma Xiaopang vaguely remembered that the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire were in the sunset forest, and this large forest was connected. Although it would be very roundabout to enter the forest from this side, as long as he looked in the direction of Xiandao City, it should not be a big problem. What kind of martial soul are you looking for, kid? We have been walking for 2 days and have encountered many suitable soul beasts along the way. Why don't you find one that you like? Xiang Qishan complained impatiently. Although he knew the problems with Hongjun's martial soul and knew that the limit of his soul rings was far beyond that of ordinary people, and the second soul ring was close to the threshold of 1,000 years, there were more than a dozen soul beasts that met the requirements along the way, but the little guy just shook his head. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.